Fantastic. I get stronger just by fishing. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Fishing All Things System. Chu Yun opened his eyes and stared at the unfamiliar ceiling. How am I still alive? He muttered to himself, before he fell into a coma. His last memory was at the edge of a big river. He was going to go fishing and caught a big fish, but who would believe that he didn't catch the fish, but was dragged into the water by the fish? Then he drowned tragically. In a daze, a memory that did not belong to him surged up from his mind. It was the memory of the original owner of this body. Chu Yun struggled to digest it, and then realized a fact, that is, he had traveled through time. This world called the spiritual world is not the earth he is familiar with. And the person who was possessed and reborn by him has the same name and surname as him, also called Chu Yun, who is 19 years old this year. He is the chief disciple of Yuan sect. He used to be brilliant, like a god in the clouds, but now he has fallen into the dust and is worthless. In this world, martial arts are respected, the strong have everything, and the weak have nothing. The most important basis for judging whether a person can become a martial arts master is the martial soul. The martial soul is divided into grades from low to high. From grade 1 to grade 9, the quality of the martial soul directly affects the strength and talent of a martial artist. Chu Yun awakened the 6th grade martial soul Earth Demon Ape when he was 10 years old, and became the most promising genius among the younger generation of Yuan sect. But the good times did not last long. Just 2 months ago, Chu Yun went out for training and was captured by someone. The murderer arrested people for no other reason than to obtain Chu Yun's martial soul. They used an evil secret method to dig out Chu Yun's martial soul and transferred it to someone else. Although Chu Yun seized the opportunity and tried his best to escape, after losing his martial soul, he quickly turned from a genius who was the focus of everyone's attention into a worthless waste, thrown into a corner and no one cared about him. In just over 2 months, Chu Yun's martial arts cultivation fell from the 5th grade of Qianjun realm to the 2nd grade of the physical body realm, and it continued to fall. Without a martial soul, the cultivation of a warrior is like a rootless duckweed, which will disappear without a trace sooner or later. By then, Chu Yun will become an ordinary person without cultivation. The original Chu Yun couldn't stand this low. He drank to relieve his sorrow every day, lived a life of drunkenness and dreams, and slept for more than 10 days. He hadn't woken up yet, and was resurrected by Chu Yun from earth. Alas, he is also a poor man. Chu Yun shook his head and sighed. He also felt the same way about the experience of the original Chu Yun. After sighing, the more important question was in front of him, that is, where should he go in the future? Ding! An abrupt mechanical sound sounded in his mind. What sound? Chu Yun was startled, and then he saw a golden light appear in front of him. In the light, a fishing rod-shaped object slowly took shape, and then Shua flew into the back of Chu Yun's hand and turned into a mark. The fishing system has been activated. Initially, a fishing rod, a special bait, and 10 ordinary baits are provided. Note, the bait grades are divided into ordinary, spiritual, earthly, heavenly, holy, and divine. The initial bait is ordinary, and higher grade baits can only be obtained after the host completes the task. Chu Yun was shocked, and then extremely happy. Sure enough, the time traveler has benefits. Fishing for everything. Doesn't it mean that you can catch anything? He tried to communicate with the mark on the back of his hand, and sure enough, he saw an illusory space in his consciousness, like the equipment grid of an online game, with several things stored in it, a fishing rod, a special bait, and 10 ordinary baits. Chu Yun's mind moved, and the fishing rod appeared in his hand, full of texture and quite sturdy. Go and try it. Chu Yun got up from the bed and went out to the stream at the back of the mountain. He sat on the shore, found a spot, took the fishing rod, put the special bait on it, and threw the bait into the stream with both nervousness and anticipation. Swish! The bait was thrown into the water, driving the fishing line to sink and straighten. Not long after, there was a pulling force from the water, as if something had taken the bait. Chu Yun was shocked and quickly reeled in the line. As a result, the force from the other end of the fishing line was very strong. He struggled with it for 2 times but failed. But the fish had been hooked, and at this time, he could not give up no matter what. Chu Yun exhausted all his strength and finally threw it out of the water. The hook broke through the water. At this moment, Chu Yun saw that what he had caught was not a fish, but a golden ball of light. In his surprised sight, the ball of light turned into a stream of light and flew into his body. At the same time, the system sound rang. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the Earth-grade martial soul, the blazing sun dragon. As soon as the words fell, Chu Yun's body shook, and his whole body became hot and scorching, as if he was soaked in magma. He couldn't help but roar to the sky. What he uttered was actually a dragon's roar. The next moment, golden light surged around Chu Yun, turning into a shadow of a dragon, majestic and majestic. Earth-grade martial soul. It's actually an Earth-grade martial soul. Chu Yun looked at the blazing sun dragon coiled around him, trembling with excitement. A 6th-grade martial soul is enough for Yuan sect to regard as a genius that only appears once in a century, and the birth of a 7th-grade martial soul will shake the entire Linghai area. And now, Chu Yun actually obtained an Earth-grade martial soul. Judging from the strength of the soul power fluctuations, the strength of this Earth-grade martial soul is undoubtedly beyond the 9th grade. Chu Yun had long known that in this world, there existed martial spirits beyond the 9th rank, and this, to him, was already a legendary existence, but he never expected that he could actually possess it. Chu Yun let out a long breath, calming his inner excitement. He felt very strange now. If Chu Yun, who once possessed the Earth Demon Ape, stood in front of him, he only needed to slap the demon ape to death with one slap. One bait represents a reward. In addition to this special bait, I also have 10 ordinary baits. What surprises will they bring me? Chu Yun's eyes flashed, and he took out an ordinary bait and hung it on the fishing rod. Swish! The bait was thrown into the water, and soon there was a pulling force. Not long after, Chu Yun exerted force and swung it, and a white ball of light was caught from the water. Ding! Congratulations, you have gained 10 years of martial arts cultivation. As soon as the voice fell, Chu Yun's body shook, and the spiritual power in his body began to gush out, like a spiritual spring, filling the dry meridians, and his realm was constantly breaking through, from the 2nd level of the physical realm to the 3rd level, and then to the 4th level of the physical realm, until he reached the 9th level of the physical realm, where he barely stopped. Chapter 2 Mission. Chu Yun felt the abundant power in his body and took a deep breath. He stood up and walked to a huge rock on the shore. Boom! Chu Yun rushed out with a punch, and the tip of his fist hit the center of the boulder. In an instant, the huge force surged and penetrated the heart of the stone. The terrifying destructive force shattered the boulder in an instant. From the position where the fist hit, cracks quickly cracked like spider webs. The 9th level of the physical realm has such power. This scorching sun dragon is worthy of being a ground-level martial soul. The increase in strength and physique is several times that of the Earth Demon Ape. Chu Yun's eyes flashed with brilliance. When Chu Yun, who possessed the Earth Demon Ape, was in the 9th level of the physical realm, his strength and physique were less than a quarter of what they are now. However, a stronger martial soul also means that more cultivation is needed to cultivate it. Chu Yun awakened his martial soul at the age of 10. At the age of 19 this year, he has only been practicing martial arts for 9 years. At his peak, he was at the 5th level of the Qianjun realm. Now, he has gained 10 years of martial arts training, and under the influence of the Earth-grade martial spirit Scorching Sun Dragon, he has only reached the 9th level of the physical realm, and has not been able to cross the threshold of the Qianjun realm. If I can gain another 10 years of martial arts training, my realm will be enough to break through the Qianjun realm. As long as I cross that threshold, no matter how many levels I can recover, my strength will surpass the peak of the past. Chu Yun felt happy. Immediately, he took out another bait and started fishing. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the ordinary level martial arts stone breaking palm. Great perfection. As soon as the voice fell, a white light ball flew into Chu Yun's body. The next moment, Chu Yun stood in place, looking at his hands, thinking, this stone-breaking palm is really a common martial arts. Any martial artist can basically do it. Chu Yun has also learned it before, but after entering the door, he no longer delved into it, because it is really unnecessary. As the eldest brother of the sect, he can completely practice better spiritual level martial arts. But now, the situation seems a little different. Stone-breaking palm, great perfection. Chu Yun touched his chin. Does this mean that he has mastered the martial art of stone-breaking palm to the highest level? He came to a boulder again and used stone-breaking palm to slap it. Snap! There was only a light sound, like the soundless spring rain. The boulder stood still without even a crack. The next moment, a gust of wind blew, and the boulder turned into powder and scattered with the wind. Chu Yun grabbed a handful of stone powder from the ground, his eyes full of shock. Is this still stone-breaking palm? It's just a mortal martial art, but it has such power when it is cultivated to the great perfection. Then, he started fishing again. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a mortal level spiritual medicine 9-turn rejuvenation pill. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a special material diamond. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the mortal level martial arts 10 on step, great perfection. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a piece of golden silk soft armor, ordinary. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 seeds of the gathering spirit grass. 10 fishing trips, 10 rewards. At the end of the last fishing trip, Chu Yun had already made a lot of money. It's a pity that I didn't catch the second martial arts cultivation, otherwise my realm would be enough to break through the Qianjun realm. Chu Yun shook his head with regret. On the other side, in the night, 2 figures came to Chu Yun's residence, and seeing that the door was open, they broke in directly. Where is that useless person? He's not here. His martial soul was taken away by the second young master, but he can still live until now. He is really lucky. Maybe he went out. We are waiting for him here. I don't believe he won't come back. After a long time, the 2 men seemed impatient, and one of them said, let's go to the back mountain to look for him. He must still be on Xiaoqingfeng. We must kill this rubbish today and eradicate the roots. Xiaoqingfeng, back mountain. Chu Yun's figure was searching in the bushes. Just now, he put away his fishing rod and prepared to go back to rest, and saw a spiritual grass on the way. He picked it up when he was free, but he didn't expect that the system prompt sounded in his ears when he picked it up. Ding! Task triggered. Task content, pick 10 spiritual grasses. Task time limit, within a quarter of an hour. Task reward, 3 ordinary baits. Chu Yun was startled at first, and then happy when he heard this sound. He had just used up the 10 baits given to him at the beginning, and was worrying about what to do when he had no bait in the future. Who would have thought that this task would be triggered like this? 10 spiritual grasses sound a lot, but on Xiaoqingfeng, it is nothing. There are 13 peaks in Yuan sect, and Xiaoqing Peak is one of them. Unlike Kaoyang Peak and Mingzhou Peak, which are full of disciples, the peak master of Xiaoqing Peak, Zhu Jinsong, is aloof and does not like to accept disciples. Apart from Chu Yun, his direct disciple, Zhu Jinsong has few disciples, and the entire Xiaoqing Peak is very sparsely populated. Therefore, the spiritual seed sown on the back mountain can often grow freely and wildly. Chu Yun only needs to look around to pick 10 spiritual grasses and complete the task. Half a quarter of an hour later, Chu Yun already had a handful of spiritual grasses in his hand. Only the last one was missing. He pushed aside the grass and found another one not far away. Immediately, Chu Yun was delighted and stepped forward to pick up the spiritual grass. Ding! Congratulations, the mission is completed. The mission reward, 3 ordinary baits, has been distributed to your system space. Please check it. After the prompt sound fell, Chu Yun opened the system space and found that 3 new ordinary baits were lying quietly inside. He immediately felt satisfied. I can go fishing 3 more times. I hope I can get another cultivation reward this time. Chu Yun thought to himself. His realm fell from the Qianjun realm. If he can't make up for it quickly, it may affect his foundation over time. At this time, a sharp sound of breaking wind came from behind Chu Yun. Chu Yun frowned, lowered his shoulders and bent his waist, and saw a flying knife painted black, passing over his head and nailed to the tree trunk in front. Finally found you, A waste. A loud laugh came from behind. Chu Yun turned around and saw two figures walking towards him with a playful look on their faces. Chu Yun recognized the identities of the two men. They were the two deacons on Kaiyang Peak. One was called Li Zi and the other was called Li Yan. They were both from the clan of Li Dairun, the great elder of Kaiyang Peak. They were Li's descendants. They had met him a few times, but they were not familiar with each other, let alone any grudges. "Hey, you, a loser, can actually dodge my flying knife. It seems that you are not that loser yet," Li Yan sneered. Chu Yun stared at the two men with a cold gaze and said, "I have no grudges with you in the past or in the present. You don't want to kill me, so who wants my life? Is it the great elder Li Dairun?" Chapter 3, Blazing Sun Dragon. "Oh, you are worthy of being the Sect's senior brother. You still have such determination when facing death," Li Zi sneered. He looked at Chu Yun with a playful look and said, "But you should have died 2 months ago. It's really troublesome for us brothers to delay until now." 2 months ago. Chu Yun's eyes flashed, and he said, "Li Dairun wanted to kill me 2 months ago? Why waste so much time talking to him?" At this time, Li Yan was impatient. He showed a grim smile and raised his hand to throw out 3 flying knives. Swish, swish, swish. These 3 knives came from the front, in a Chinese character shape, with an incredibly fast speed. The black blades were almost perfectly integrated with the environment in the night, and it was difficult to detect with the naked eye. When Chu Yun saw the other party raising his hand, he began to dodge. He stepped on a stone in front of him and took 2 steps. His body jumped into the air. The flying knives flew under him, but the crisis was not resolved, because, at the same time, Li Zi had already pressed forward, facing Chu Yun who was still in the air, and punched him. "What do you say about being the first disciple of the young generation? I think he is just a vain reputation. He doesn't even have the basic knowledge of fighting. He is really a waste." Li Zi sneered in his heart. When warriors fight, they must stick to the ground with all their strength. Unless they have reached the mountain and sea realm and can fly freely, they must never jump into the air easily, because, in the air, under the influence of gravity, the body can only fall down, the trajectory is fixed, and the waist is suspended in the air, lacking a force point. Facing an attack from the ground, it is almost certain to fail. At this moment, Li Zi punched out, and Chu Yun's body was about to land, so he had to avoid it and face the power of this punch head-on. But, it was in that lightning moment, Chu Yun's feet touched the air, and his body unexpectedly borrowed the force from the air, as if he was stepping on the clouds, and rose again. Cloud step, like the stone-breaking palm. This is just a common martial art. Beginners can only use it to climb upwards, but after reaching the state of great perfection, this cloud climbing step can condense a ball of chi under their feet. Chu Yun stepped on this ball of chi, just like climbing up the clouds, and could borrow strength from the air. While he dodged Li Zi's punch, he also kicked Li Zi on the shoulder. Bang! With a loud bang, Li Zi's figure retreated more than 10 steps backwards before he finally released the force. But even so, the chi and blood in his body could not stop surging. Li Zi looked up again, his eyes full of shock. "Why, what kind of body movement is that? Can you actually jump up in the air by borrowing strength?" Chu Yun did not answer, because the battle situation at the moment was very tense. The strength gap between the two sides was very large. Li Zi and Li Yan, as the stewards of Kaiyang Peak, are both at the Kaiyang realm. One is at the first level and the other is at the second level. Although their levels are not high, Chu Yun is only at the 9th level of the physical realm. The difference between the two is a whole realm, and it is 2 against 1. It is an understatement to say that it is very tense. It seems that after losing your martial soul, your realm has not fallen too much, but even so, you will definitely die today, Li Yan shouted coldly. As soon as the voice fell, the soul light around him emerged and turned into the phantom of a black wolf, with blood-red eyes and fangs, full of murderous aura. This is Li Yan's 3rd level martial soul, Deadly Black Wolf. Li Zi also summoned his own martial soul, a 3rd level Green Wind Leopard. The two are going to go all out to completely crush Chu Yun, who has no martial soul. In the battle between warriors, The martial soul is a factor that has a great influence. It can increase the combat power of warriors in all aspects. Some special martial souls can even bring special talents to warriors. For example, Chu Yun's 6th grade martial soul Earth Demon Ape has a natural ability. As long as the warrior steps on the ground, his own strength can be doubled. Although Li Zi and Li Yan's 3rd grade martial souls have no natural abilities, they can also increase their combat power and increase their strength. Is it great to have a martial soul? Chu Yun raised his eyebrows. Sorry, having a martial soul is great. Li Yan sneered. If your martial soul Earth Demon Ape is still there, we brothers would never dared to provoke you, but now you are just a waste whose martial soul has been taken away. Even if your realm has not fallen, you are not our opponent. The old does not go, the new does not come. Since you're so afraid of my Earth Demon Ape, why not take a look at my new martial soul? As Chu Yun spoke, soul light floated around him, and a fiery breath expanded in the night. That as Li Zi and Li Yan looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. They didn't know why they felt scared, and they actually had a trembling emotion. When they looked more carefully, it turned out that their martial souls, Deadly Black Wolf and Green Wind Leopard, were already flashing violently at this moment, and the soul light was turbulent and unstable, as if they would be annihilated at any time. Suddenly, the two of them were in shock. What kind of martial soul is that? It hasn't appeared yet, but only a trace of breath has leaked out, making it difficult for their 3rd grade martial souls to maintain their own existence! This is my new martial soul, Blazing Sun Sky Dragon, Chu Yun said lightly. Its first innate ability is called Dragon Power. As soon as the voice fell, in the fiery air waves, the magma rolled and flowed, turning into a golden ray dragon shadow, with a prominent head and horns, looking up to the sky and howling, and the domineering momentum swept the whole scene. At this moment, the two 3rd grade martial souls, Deadly Black Wolf and Green Wind Leopard, were almost unable to move under the pressure of the dragon's might, and their soul power was rapidly consumed. Li Zi and Li Yan stared at the terrifying dragon shadow with wide eyes, almost falling to the ground. The existence of the dragon's might not only exerted pressure on the martial soul, but also exerted a huge pressure on themselves. There was a feeling of extreme chest tightness and shortness of breath. That is, what? Martial soul. Li Zi gritted his teeth and said this sentence with difficulty. Looking at the violent fluctuations of the soul light of the martial soul Green Wind Leopard, which was almost unable to provide him with a combat power increase, he actually felt a sense of unreality in his heart, as if he was dreaming. Dragon's might? What kind of ability is this? Why is it so terrifying? Just by appearing, it suppressed the martial souls of the two of them into this state. However, Chu Yun was somewhat dissatisfied with this. He shook his head and said to himself, my current cultivation is still too low, and I can't bring out the full power of Dragon's might. Otherwise, as long as I summon the Scorching Sun Dragon, any martial spirit below the Earth grade within 1,000 miles will be directly shattered and annihilated. Scorching Sun Dragon is an Earth grade martial spirit, which is far superior to the 9th grade martial spirit. It has more innate abilities than just Dragon's might, but stronger innate abilities also require stronger cultivation to support. With Chu Yun's current cultivation, he can only use one Dragon's might, but it is enough to deal with Li Yan and the others. Kill him. Li Zi roared, and rushed towards Chu Yun with the martial spirit Green Wind Leopard. Under the oppression of Dragon's might, the longer they dragged on, the weaker their fighting spirit would be. If they continued like this, they would surely die. Li Yan also gritted his teeth and threw a few flying knives at Chu Yun. You are courting death. Chu Yun shook his head, and the blazing sun dragon coiled around him, with golden ray dragon flames burning fiercely. With just one strike, the soul of Green Wind Leopard was directly shattered. Li Zi was kicked by Chu Yun before, and was already injured. Now that his martial soul was shattered, he was also hit back. He immediately spit out blood and his momentum was mostly weak. Chu Yun seized the opportunity, rubbed his body forward, and slapped Li Zi's chest with a simple and unpretentious stone-breaking palm. Bang! Li Zi's body shook, and the organs under his chest were shattered by this palm. He immediately bled from all 7 orifices and died on the spot. Li Yan saw this, and he was even more furious. He yelled wildly and attacked Chu Yun fiercely, and the flying knives and poison needles in his hands kept throwing out, like a rainstorm of pear blossoms. Li Yan is good at hidden weapons. When fighting, he often uses his martial soul Deadly Black Wolf to entangle the opponent in close combat, and he himself kills with hidden weapons from a distance. But this time, his Deadly Black Wolf was completely useless in front of Chu Yun. The closer it got to Chu Yun, the stronger the dragon's might pressure felt by the Deadly Black Wolf. After getting close, its soul was almost disintegrated. The third grade martial soul is too low compared to the earth grade martial soul that exceeds the 9th grade. Chu Yun also punched out, shattering the soul of the Deadly Black Wolf, and then went straight to kill Li Yan. Swish, 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 hidden weapons flew like rain. Chu Yun's body was agile and dodged most of them. Some of the difficult ones fell on Chu Yun, but they could not cause any harm. Because Chu Yun was wearing a gold silk soft armor, he could effectively defend against the damage of hidden weapons. Die! Chu Yun quickly stuck within 3 steps of Li Yan and sent out a palm. Li Yan resisted in a panic, and in the close combat, his performance was even worse than Li's. After a few moves, he was unable to resist and eventually died here. Chapter 4, Confident. Chu Yun let out a long breath, looking at the bodies of the 2 people laying on the ground. He was silent for a while, and then shook his head. The original Chu Yun, although not a murderer, had seen blood, and as a time traveler, this was the first time he killed someone. Although the other party took the initiative and wanted his life, it was still unusual to see 2 lives end in his hands. But Chu Yun would not mind it. Since you have come to such a world, fighting and killing are inevitable. You should think about your situation first. Chu Yun shook his head. Li Zi and Li Yan were entrusted by others to take his life. Although the 2 did not say it clearly, Chu Yun estimated that there was an 80% chance that it was the instruction of the great elder Li Dairun. Why does Li Dairun want to kill me? Li Zi and the other 2 just mentioned that they wanted me to die 2 months ago. Could it be that the reason behind this is related to the seizure of the Earth Demon Ape? Chu Yun guessed in his heart. But the information he knew now was too little, and it was difficult to make a judgment for a while. Looking at the 2 corpses on the ground again, Chu Yun thought for a moment, then took out a bottle of medicine powder from the system space and sprinkled it on the corpses. Sizzled, a burst of gas corrosion sound rang out violently, and in just a breath of time, the 2 corpses had turned into thick water, and their clothes were corroded cleanly. This is a bottle of corpse powder that was fished up before, which is specially used to deal with corpses and destroy them. No matter who sent people to kill me, Li Zi and the other 2 disappeared quietly. But I am still alive. This information will be presented to the mastermind behind the scenes, and it will definitely make him afraid. He will not act trashly before he knows my true strength, and this time is my opportunity to grow. Chu Yun thought in his heart. Afterwards, Chu Yun came to the creek again, took the 3 ordinary baits that the system had just rewarded, and began to fish. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the ordinary martial arts iron shirt. Great perfection. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the ordinary martial arts 8 steps to chase cicadas. Great perfection. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 years of martial arts cultivation. 3 times of fishing, 3 kinds of rewards. The last white ball of light flew into Chu Yun's body, and immediately made Chu Yun's cultivation soar. From the 9th level of the physical realm, rising all the way, he soon broke through the threshold of the Qianjun realm, and then went all the way up to the 1st level of the Qianjun realm, and then climbed to the 2nd level of the Qianjun realm. In the end, Chu Yun's cultivation stayed at the peak of the 3rd level of the Qianjun realm. Finally back, Chu Yun opened his eyes, and 2 rays of light flashed in his eyes. Although the martial arts cultivation of the past 10 years has not restored his realm to the peak of the 5th level of the Qianjun realm, the peak of the 3rd level of the Qianjun realm alone has made Chu Yun's combat power far beyond the original. Chu Yun, who possesses the Scorching Sun Dragon martial spirit, can defeat 2 Qianjun realm 1st and 2nd level warriors alone when he is in the 9th level of the physical realm. Now that he has crossed the threshold of the Qianjun realm, His combat power has suddenly increased several times, which is completely incomparable to before. The next day, in the early morning, on the Kyang Peak, a figure sat cross-legged on the top of the mountain, breathing in the spiritual energy of the mountains and rivers. This person was dressed in a white robe, with white hair and a childlike face, and he was the great elder of the Yuan sect. Li Daren, great elder, I have something to report. A figure walked quickly from the mountain path and bowed. Speak. Li Daren did not open his eyes and said lightly, last night, you asked the Li Zi brothers to go to Xiaoqingfeng to assassinate Chu Yun. These two have not returned yet. Oh. Li Daren's eyebrows twitched, and he opened his cloudy eyes, in which a gleam of brilliance flashed. What about Chu Yun? Is he dead? The man replied, not dead. Not only that, he also walked out of Xiaoqingfeng and wandered around the sect, as if nothing had happened. Have you sent anyone to look for Li Zi and the others? Not yet. No need to look for them. Li Daren shook his head. They dare not delay such a thing. If he is still alive, he must have come back to report. He has not returned yet, so he must be dead. The man was surprised and said, there are very few people on Xiaoqingfeng. Except for Chu Yun, there is no one who has made a difference. Who can kill Li Zi and Li Yan? This is where it gets interesting. Li Daren narrowed his eyes and said, if I'm not mistaken, Chu Yun's master should have returned. Third Elder Zhu Jinsong? The man's face changed and said, what should we do? If he knew that it was us who took Chu Yun's martial soul and transplanted it to the second young master, he would definitely not let it go. Zhu Jinsong is the third elder of Yuan sect and the master of Xiaoqing Peak. 3 years ago, Zhu Jinsong went out for training and has not returned since then. There is no news at all. It is generally believed in the sect that Zhu Jinsong has died outside. If not for this, Li Daren would not have set his sights on Chu Yun. Before, he dared to take action against him and seize his martial soul because he was alone and had no master to support him. But who would have thought that Zhu Jinsong would come back again? Why are you panicking? Li Daren glanced at him and said calmly, even if he knows, what can he do? The matter is done. His apprentice is already a useless person. After my son controlled the earth demon ape, he is now a peerless genius with twin martial souls. Even if the trouble is brought to the sect master, I am not afraid at all. As soon as the voice fell, the visitor's body shook. After thinking about it carefully, he found that this was indeed the truth. The secret method of martial soul transplantation can only be used once for the same martial soul. If you want to transplant it back again, it will not only be as difficult as ascending to heaven, but there is also a great possibility of destroying the soul body of the martial soul. In other words, after this earth demon ape was taken away, it was almost impossible for it to return to Chu Yun's body. In this way, Chu Yun would be a useless waste. And after Li Yuan, the second son of the Li family, possessed the earth demon ape, he was already a genius with twin martial souls. For Yuan sect, it is obvious who is more valuable between the two. If Zhu Jinsong picked up the matter and made a fuss to the sect master, the sect master would definitely favor the Li family after knowing the truth. After all, only in this way can a genius with the earth demon ape be left for Yuan sect, rather than drawing water in the bamboo basket. If Zhu Jinsong is not convinced, just come to me. With his small kingfeng, can he really compete with my Kyang Peak? It's ridiculous. Li Daren sneered and shook his head. Then, does Chu Yun still want to? Don't worry about him for now. Let's see what Zhu Jinsong plans to do. Since he didn't show up, he must have some intention. Yes. Chapter 5 Library. This day was a very complicated day for the disciples of Yuan sect, because they witnessed the fall of a genius. Chu Yun, who had disappeared from the public eye for 2 months, reappeared. After his martial spirit was taken away, this former senior brother of the sect did not become decadent, depressed, or rekindled his fighting spirit and blood boiling, but became a little weird. Yes, a little weird. The disciples saw him walk down the Xiaoqing Peak and wander around the sect, as if he was very curious about everything and wanted to touch everything. Sometimes, when everyone saw him pick up a glass stone on the ground, he suddenly became extremely happy, his eyebrows flew, and then he ran to the side of the road to pick up other stones and put them away as if they were treasures. Sometimes, Chu Yun would come to the ranch where monsters were raised, feed those dirty monsters, and then leave contentedly. This behavior was abnormal to say the least, and others could not understand why Chu Yun did these things. Alas, many people sighed. It seems that Chu Yun was too shocked by what happened 2 months ago. Now he is not in the right mind. What a pity. No one could understand why Chu Yun picked up those glass stones, and no one could understand why Chu Yun wanted to feed those monsters. The only reasonable explanation was that Chu Yun was too shocked and had lost his mind. But in fact, Chu Yun was just completing the system's task. After the fishing system for all things was activated, it initially came with 10 ordinary baits and 1 special bait. After Chu Yun used them up, if he wanted to get new bait, he could only get it by completing tasks. Like before in the back mountain of Xiaoqingfeng, he picked up a spiritual grass and triggered a task. This gave Chu Yun inspiration. So, on this day, he walked out of Xiaoqingfeng and wanted to try his luck outside to see if he could trigger some new tasks to get bait. The result was that it really worked. Just now when he picked up the first glass stone, the system sounded in his mind, asking him to pick up 8 glass stones within a quarter of an hour, and reward 2 ordinary baits. After completing this task, he came to the monster ranch and tried to feed the monsters, and then triggered another task, asking him to feed 20 monsters, and the task reward was 3 baits. Chu Yun did all this just to complete the system's task, but this kind of thing, in the eyes of others, is simply incomprehensible. Chu Yun didn't want to explain, and he couldn't explain it clearly. Wouldn't it be better to trigger a few more tasks instead of wasting time? Chu Yun was calm and continued to wander around the sects, enjoying the scenery of the other world while looking for opportunities to trigger some new tasks. That night, Chu Yun returned to Xiaoqingfeng. After a day of wandering, he triggered a total of 2 tasks and obtained 5 ordinary baits. Immediately, he started a new round of fishing. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a pair of lion boots. Ordinary item. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 fire spirit grass spirit seeds. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the ordinary level martial arts piercing gold finger. Great perfection. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a section of the special material Wuking Wood. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 years of martial arts enlightenment. Chu Yun looked at the last reward, and his heart suddenly moved. 10 years of martial arts enlightenment? Cultivation can directly improve my realm. Could this enlightenment be used to enhance my martial arts and skills? Chu Yun guessed in his heart. Immediately, he returned to his residence and took out a book. This book is the spiritual level martial arts Chu Yun obtained from the sect, Kaianshan Eightfold Strength. This martial art is used to enhance attack power. When you cultivate to the entry level, you can stack the power 3 times, and when you cultivate to the great perfection realm, you can stack the power 8 times. The effect is extremely terrifying. However, spiritual martial arts are spiritual martial arts after all, and they are difficult to learn. Chu Yun, who had studied for 2 years, only cultivated the Thousand Mountains Eightfold Strength to the 4th level, which was barely a small success. At this moment, Chu Yun opened the martial arts book, and the system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! You have martial arts comprehension that has not been used yet. Do you want to use it? Chu Yun nodded and chose to use it. As soon as the voice fell, he suddenly felt that the picture he saw in front of him had changed. Obviously, the book was still the same book, but Chu Yun clearly felt that he could see much more than before. Various experiences and insights quickly churned in his mind. Is this the feeling of using comprehension to learn quickly? It's so amazing. Chu Yun sighed. In just one night, Chu Yun used 6 years of martial arts comprehension to finally cultivate the Thousand Mountains Eightfold Strength to the state of great perfection. When using this move, even an ordinary attack will be superimposed with 8 levels of strength, and the destructive power that can be caused is extremely terrifying. The great perfection of spiritual martial arts is extraordinary. The next day, Chu Yun left Xiaoqing Peak early again and wandered around the sect. The rumors about him had spread in Yuan sect, but Chu Yun didn't care and continued to do his own thing. In addition to Kaiyang Peak, Chu Yun planned to visit every peak. After all, there might be a mission waiting for him anywhere. Among the 13 peaks of Yuan sect, the most worthy of Chu Yun's in-depth exploration is undoubtedly Mingzhou Peak. This is the main peak of Yuan sect, and its master is the master of Yuan sect, Shangyu and Zenran. As the main peak, Mingzhou Peak is open, and there are various public facilities in the peak, such as martial arts field, library, arsenal, etc. Some important sect activities will also be held on Mingzhou Peak. At this moment, Chu Yun came to the yard outside the library. The autumn wind was bleak and the leaves were falling. Chu Yun was inspired and picked up the broom by the wall, ready to sweep the fallen leaves in the yard. Ding! Task triggered. Task content: clean the courtyard of the library. Task time limit: within half an hour. Task reward: 3 ordinary baits. Chu Yun's eyes lit up when he heard this, and then he began to sweep the floor happily. People came and went in the library, and the disciples who came in and out of the pavilion had different emotions when they saw their former sect master sweeping the floor in the yard heartlessly. Some people felt sorry, some laughed, and some were filled with emotion. It was a picture of all living beings. Dong dong dong. The sound of the bell echoed in the mountains of Mingzhou Peak. This was the bell of the Chen hour. Not long after, an old man in gray clothes, hunched over, walked into the yard of the library with a broom, ready to start sweeping the floor. But soon, he unexpectedly discovered that most of the area in the yard had been swept clean. "Little guy, what are you doing?" The old man saw Chu Yun and was stunned for a moment. "Sweeping the floor," Chu Yun replied as a matter of course. He looked at the old man in gray and said with a smile, "Uncle Zhu, you have been sweeping the floor in the library for decades. It must be too hard." "I have nothing to do here, so I will help you." Chapter 6 Tower of Babel. Hearing this, Zhu Bo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After a while, he shook his head and said, "I'm just a servant sweeping the floor. How dare I trouble you?" As he said that, he stepped forward to take Chu Yun's broom. "Don't." Chu Yun quickly avoided him and said with a smile, "I can't stop working. I'll finish sweeping soon. It's not my character to let me give up halfway. You go and take a rest. Let me sweep today." Zhu Bo looked at Chu Yun and said, "Do you really want to sweep?" "Really?" Chu Yun nodded repeatedly. Zhu Bo glanced at Chu Yun, no longer insisted, turned around and rested under the roots of the tree. He knew who Chu Yun was, not because of Chu Yun's former identity, but because he had a photographic memory. Over the past few decades, countless people came and went in the library, and he remembered every one of them. However, even though he had seen millions of people, Chu Yun was the only one who took the initiative to help him sweep the floor. Thinking of the recent rumors about Chu Yun, he couldn't help but sigh and shook his head. It seems that he is really crazy. After a while, Chu Yun finished sweeping the floor, and the system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations, the mission is completed. The mission reward, 3 ordinary baits, has been issued to your system space. Please check it. Chu Yun was satisfied when he heard it. He put the broom back to its original place, nodded to Zhu Bo under the tree roots, and turned to leave the library, ready to try his luck elsewhere. At this time, several disciples passed by, talking as they walked, looking very happy, as if something extraordinary had just happened. "Have you heard? The record of the Tower of Babel has been broken." Li Yuan, the second son of Li Dairen, the great elder of Kaiyang Peak, has opened up the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel. "What? The 7th floor? How is this possible?" Back then, Chu Yun, who possessed the 6th grade martial soul Earth Demon Ape, only opened up the 6th floor. Isn't the martial soul awakened by Li Yuan only of the 4th grade? How could he open up the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel? You don't know this, right? It turns out that Li Yuan doesn't have only one martial soul, but a twin martial soul that is 1 in a million. In addition to the 4th grade martial soul Phantom Water Curtain that he awakened initially, he also has another martial soul of extremely high grade. It is said that it is also a 6th grade martial soul. Twin martial souls? One of the martial souls is a 6th grade martial soul? This talent is too terrifying. The discussion gradually became louder, and every disciple who heard the news could not help being shocked. The appearance of a 6th grade martial soul was already shocking enough, and Liu Ong actually had an extremely rare twin martial soul. This talent was simply unstoppable in the Yuan sect. He was even stronger than the original senior brother Chu Yun, and even in the Linghai region, he was a rare existence. And this time, Liu Ong relied on his twin martial souls to open up the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel in one fell swoop, which was enough to prove his talent and strength. Chu Yun at the time could not do this. 6th grade martial soul? Excuse me, what kind of 6th grade martial soul is it? At this time, a voice sounded from the side. It is said that it is a giant wearing armor, belonging to the type with extremely violent power. Speaking of it, it is quite similar to Chu Yun's Earth Demon Ape. The man opened his mouth to answer, and when he looked back, he was stunned. His expression became extremely strange. In his surprise, there was a hint of sympathy, because the person who asked the question just now was Chu Yun. The man thought, Chu Yun was once the eldest brother of the sect, and he was in great glory. Now his martial soul has been taken away and he has become a cripple. He has heard that there is a genius stronger than him. He must feel very uncomfortable, right? Is it the same type of 6th grade martial soul as the Earth Demon Ape? I understand. Chu Yun smiled at him. It's not uncomfortable, but Chu Yun figured out a lot of things in an instant. Liu On's 4th grade martial soul is called Phantom Water Curtain. Its characteristic is that it can create phantoms. That armor must be a disguise he deliberately made. The one standing in the armor is the Earth Demon Ape. Chu Yun sneered. Liu On is Li Dairun's son. Li Dairun sent Li Zi and the other two to kill him before, presumably to silence him. Ding. Task triggered. Task content. Open up the 9-story Tower of Babel. Task time limit. Within 1 day. Task reward. 1 spiritual bait. 3 ordinary baits. As soon as the words fell, Chu Yun was surprised and happy. Spiritual bait. This is the first time he has triggered a task that rewards spiritual bait. Open up the 9-story Tower of Babel. Chu Yun touched his chin. The Tower of Babel is a trial place for disciples in Yuan sect, with a total of 9 floors. Each floor will generate an illusion based on the current realm of the challenger. The higher the level, the stronger the ability of the illusion. Defeating the illusion of the current level can reach the next level and continue the challenge. Previously, Chu Yun, who had the 6th grade martial spirit Earth Demon Ape, only opened up the first 6 floors and stopped at the 7th floor. Now, the requirement of this task is to open up all 9 floors of the Tower of Heaven, which is undoubtedly very difficult. But it is not difficult for Chu Yun. Li Yuan took my Earth Demon Ape and turned it into a twin martial spirit. With such a thing, he can open up the 7th floor. I, the Scorching Sun Dragon, can open up the 9th floor. Isn't it easy? After a moment of hesitation, Chu Yun decided that this task must be completed, but he couldn't go through it so openly, and he had to disguise himself. The father and son of the Li family were fierce and brutal. Even the disciples of their own sect could be killed unscrupulously and seize the martial spirit. If Scorching Sun Dragon was exposed in front of them, Chu Yun could hardly guarantee that the father and son would not do something crazy again. My realm is too low now, and I can't fight against the great elder Li Dairun. I can only live in fear for now, but I will definitely avenge this grudge. Chu Yun made up his mind. At this moment, there were huge crowds of people under the Babel Tower. The fact that Li Yuan broke the record of the Babel Tower caused a sensation in Yuan sect. Before this, only a few geniuses had opened up the 6th floor of the Babel Tower, but the 7th floor was taboo place that no one had ever touched. But today, Li Yuan broke through, like a shining god, enjoying the worship of thousands of people. Of course, there were also people who were not convinced. Dao Lingaling from Yuxiu Peak was one of them. She was the only genius who had opened up the 6th floor of the Babel Tower besides Chu Yun, but she was completely powerless when facing the 7th floor of the Babel Tower. She failed after several attempts. Li Yuan laughed at the beautiful figure who once again exited the tower gate. Junior sister Lingaling, you'd better not be so stubborn. The phantom on the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel is not so easy to defeat. If you try again, I'm worried that you will hurt your foundation. As soon as the voice fell, the disciples of Kaiyang Peak beside Li Yuan all spoke up with flying eyebrows. In the words, Li Yuan was praised as a man in heaven, invincible, and the people around him didn't think it was wrong to say so. Instead, they looked at Li Yuan with envy and admiration. After opening the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel, Li Yuan has proved his strength to everyone in Yuan sect. If nothing unexpected happens, the title of the new senior brother will definitely fall on his head. Dao Lingaling glanced at Li Yuan, pursed her lips and said nothing. After taking a pill, she sat cross-legged on the ground and began to regulate her breath, preparing to continue to attack the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel. Li Yuan looked at Zhao Lingaling's pretty face full of unwillingness, and his heart was full of joy, making him want to laugh up to the sky. As a genius of Yuxiu Peak, Zhao Lingaling's own martial soul is only of the 4th grade, which is not considered high in Yuan sect, because in addition to Chu Yun, a genius with a 6th grade martial soul, there are several excellent seeds of 5th grade martial souls in the sect, and their talents are better than hers. However, only she and Chu Yun can pass the 6th floor of Tongshan Tower. The reason is only one thing: she is hard-working enough. Through hard training and unique combat wisdom, she has developed her martial soul Three-Eyed Spirit Cat to the extreme. In this world, people with high martial souls are extremely rare, so they are called geniuses, but people with low martial souls who can match those geniuses are even rarer. Zhao Lingaling is such a person. Although her martial soul is only of the 4th grade, her combat power is stronger than that of the 5th grade of the same level. Before Li Yuan obtained the Earth Demon Ape, Zhao Lingaling was completely out of reach for him, and he could only look up to her. But now, he can stand at a higher place and look down at Zhao Lingaling climbing below. This feeling makes Li Yuan intoxicated. Speaking of which, I really have to thank Chu Yun, the idiot. Without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. From now on, glory, status, strength, and beauty, all belong to me. All of you can only lie on the ground and look up at me. Ha ha ha. Li Yuan was very happy. However, no one noticed that a plain-looking figure was walking into the Tower of Babel. This person was Chu Yun in disguise. Chapter 7, Instant Kill. The Tongshan Tower runs once every hour, and can accommodate up to 100 people at a time for the trial. After an hour, all the trialists who enter the Tongshan Tower will be teleported out. After Chu Yun returned to Zioking Peak, he disguised himself, put a beard on his face, changed his clothes, and put some things inside. His body shape and appearances have changed a lot. It is difficult for people who are not particularly familiar with him to recognize him. At this moment, he walked into the Tongshan Tower, and many disciples entered with him, but after the trial began, everyone was assigned to a separate space. Buzz, a trembling sound sounded, and Chu Yun walked into a ball of light. The next moment, he appeared in a confined space of 100 feet in radius, with nothing around him. In front of Chu Yun, stood a black figure. His realm, the same as Chu Yun, is the 3rd level of Qianjun realm, but the other party's martial soul level is very low, only the 1st level. When Chu Yun opened his eyes, the Black Phantom had already rushed towards him and took the initiative to attack. Chu Yun raised his hand and made a simple stone-breaking palm. Bang! The palm on the chest of the Black Phantom was directly shattered and turned into a ball of light. Seeing this, Chu Yun stepped into the ball of light and came to the 2nd floor of the Tower of Babel. There was also a Black Phantom here, and its martial spirit grade was also the lowest grade, but its realm was 1 grade higher than Chu Yun, and it was the 4th grade of Qianjun realm. However, this grade difference was not enough in front of Chu Yun. Just one hit, and it was killed instantly. Next, it was the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors of the Tower of Babel. The phantoms on each floor were 1 grade higher than the previous floor, but in front of Chu Yun, it was just a matter of 1 punch to kill. Because their martial spirit grades were too low, and they were not real people, but just shadows simulated by the Tower of Babel, sometimes their combat reactions were too mechanical, and they were much weaker than human warriors of the same realm. When walking through the first 6 floors, Chu Yun always killed with 1 punch without much effort. In his opinion, this was natural, but it caused a stir outside the Tower of Babel. Many people watched as light spots flickered on the Tower of Babel. Each light spot represented a trialist, and the total number was close to 70 or 80. Among them, most of them stayed in the first 3 floors, and only a few could reach the 4th floor. As for the light spots on the 5th floor, there were only 2, one of which had stopped flickering, which meant that the trialist had failed and would be teleported out when the time was up. However, the other light spot representing Chu Yun was still flickering. Not only that, it disappeared from the 5th floor and jumped to the 6th floor of the Tower of Babel. Someone broke through the 5th floor and came to the 6th floor. Who is that person? Is he a new genius from which peak? Someone exclaimed, attracting a lot of attention. In Yuan sect, most of the disciples stopped at the 4th floor of the Tower of Babel. There were very few people who could get through the 5th floor and reach the 6th floor. Each of them could be called a genius and was worthy of attention. It's just the 5th floor. Li Yuan sneered and shook his head, looking nonchalant, not taking it seriously at all. The 5th floor used to be unimaginable to him, but now that he has even reached the 7th floor, how could he take the 5th floor seriously? At this moment, his mind was on Zhao Lingaling, who was not far away, just waiting for this proud and stubborn little sister to give up completely and submit to him. Junior sister Lingaling. Li Yuan looked at Zhao Lingaling and smiled faintly. Just as he was about to say something, he found that Zhao Lingaling's beautiful eyes showed a look of surprise. Then, he heard a cry of surprise from all around. Oh my God, that person actually got through the 6th floor and came to the 7th floor. Impossible. Li Yuan frowned and quickly turned to look at the Tower of Babel. Sure enough, the light spot had disappeared from the 6th floor and reached the 7th floor. Now, Li Yuan could not help but despise it. Throughout the history of Yuan sect, there were only 3 people who could break through the 6th floor and reach the 7th floor. They were Chu Yun, Zhao Lingaling, and Li Yuan. Now, a 4th person has appeared, and this person's speed of breaking through the barrier is too fast. Li Yuan just turned around and spoke a few words, and the man had already broken through the 6th floor. This speed is so terrifying. Damn it, did he kill the phantom on the 6th floor in seconds? That was an opponent who was 6 levels higher than him. How could he beat him so quickly? Li Yuan frowned, feeling an inexplicable pressure. When he broke through the 6th floor, although it was easy, his speed was far worse than this. On the side, Zhao Lingaling was also surprised. She stopped regulating her breath and stared at the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel with her beautiful eyes, looking at the flickering light spot, as if she wanted to see if this person could create another miracle and open up the 7th floor to copy Li Yuan's feat. At this moment, in the Tower of Babel, Chu Yun crushed all the way to the 7th floor. The phantom here has reached the 9th level of the Qianjun realm, which is also the limit of Chu Yun, who once possessed the Earth Demon Ape. However, facing Chu Yun now, the black phantom of the 9th level of the Qianjun realm still looks extremely weak. Chu Yun went close to him and used several ordinary martial arts of the Great Perfection realm to move around with ease. Once he seized the opportunity, he decisively used the martial arts of the Great Perfection of the spiritual realm, Qianshan Eightfold Strength. Bang! With just one blow, the phantom was directly shattered and turned into a ball of light. After the power was superimposed with 8 layers of energy, Chu Yun's attack power was so terrible that even the phantom of the 9th level of Qianjun realm could not withstand it. Chu Yun exhaled with satisfaction, then stepped into the light ball again and came to the 8th floor of the Tower of Babel. Wow! The sound of shock and uproar spread outside the Tower of Babel, and the crowd was like a pot of boiling water, setting off a heated discussion. The 8th floor. He actually reached the 8th floor of the Tower of Babel after breaking through the 7th floor. Moreover, the speed of breaking through is so fast. What's wrong with this world? In the past few decades, no one has been able to break through the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel. It's okay that Li Yuan, who has twin martial spirits, appeared today, but why is there another one? And it seems that this person is even more powerful than Li Yuan. Li Yuan listened to the discussions around him. His breathing became heavier, and his fists clenched tightly. His face no longer had the initial smug and complacent look, but was replaced by a very ferocious look of resentment. Why? Who is it? Why can he pass the 7th floor? I, Li Yuan, have twin martial spirits and am the son of destiny. Only I can enjoy this glory. Why do you dare to share it? Li Yuan's eyes were red and murderous. He stared at the flashing light on the 8th floor of the Tower of Babel, wishing he could rush in and tear it into pieces. He was a petty person who relied on the martial spirit he had robbed to show off his power. Now he was slapped in the face by this guy who came out of nowhere. Naturally, he felt very uncomfortable. That person also passed the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel, and his speed was much faster than his. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that he, Li Yuan, was not as good as that person. At this time, exclamations spread around again. Li Yuan's heart tightened, and he was a little bit unbelievable, and then he saw that the light spot disappeared from the 8th floor. Then, it appeared on the 9th floor again. The 9th floor. That person actually broke through the 8th floor and came to the 9th floor. Instantly, the crowd exploded again. Although Li Yuan broke through the 7th floor of the Tower of Babel, it was terrifying. But in the history of Yuan sect, he was not the only one who had done it. But, this is the first time that someone has broken through the 8th floor of the Tower of Babel. The crowd was boiling. No one looked at Li Yuan anymore. Everyone stared at the light spot flickering on the 9th floor, as if witnessing a miracle. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Blood of the Earth Dragon. Chu Yun did encounter some difficulties on the 8th floor, because the number of phantoms on the 8th floor had changed, from 1 phantom of the 9th level of the Qianjun realm on the 7th floor to 2. The doubling of the number naturally doubled the challenges. The 2 phantoms were 2 against 1, which greatly increased the threat to Chu Yun. Moreover, the 2 phantoms were not fighting alone, but cooperating with each other. Although the individual strength of these 2 phantoms was far inferior to Chu Yun, through the combined attack technique, they were still able to compete with Chu Yun in a short period of time. Chu Yun's response was also very simple, that is, to stare at one of them and chase him relentlessly. Sometimes, he would rather be attacked by another phantom than destroy one of them first. Anyway, he had the protection of the Blazing Sun Dragon and wore a golden silk soft armor, so his skin was very thick. After a fierce attack, the 2 phantoms were broken one after another, and Chu Yun broke through the 8th floor of the Tower of Babel. Finally, he walked into the light group and came to the 9th floor of the Tower of Babel, which was also the last floor. There were a total of 9 figures in this space. Each of them, like the 2 phantoms on the 8th floor, was a 9th grade cultivator of the Qianjun realm. They lined up in front of Chu Yun, making a very impressive appearance. 9? Chu Yun was also shocked when he saw this. He originally estimated that there would be 2 phantoms on the 8th floor, and 3 or 4 on the 9th floor. How come there were so many of them all of a sudden? 1 against 9. The difficulty is not just doubled, but it has suddenly increased. How can he win? However, after a closer look, Chu Yun found that among the 9 phantoms, there was 1 phantom with a color that was different from the others. It was a very special white color, and judging from the position, the white phantom was firmly protected in the center by the other 8 black phantoms. Could it be that this level does not require all 9 phantoms to be eliminated? As long as the white phantom is eliminated, this level can be passed? Chu Yun had a guess in his mind. At the same time, the 8 black phantoms had already killed him, and only the white phantom remained in place without moving. Seeing this, Chu Yun was more convinced of his guess, so he rushed forward instead of retreating, and rushed towards the white phantom. The wind was howling around, and 8 black phantoms kept coming, with various killing moves. Chu Yun dodged one by one, except for the very deadly attacks that had to be blocked. He dodged all other attacks as much as possible, just to get closer to the white phantom faster. But the closer he got, the more the white phantom ran in the opposite direction. Although the speed was not fast, Chu Yun was entangled by the 8 black phantoms. How could he catch up? After trying to no avail, Chu Yun was a little angry. Okay, you rely on the number of people, right? Then I will deal with you last. Wait for death, Chu Yun said with itchy teeth. Then, like a tiger rushing into a flock of sheep, He took the initiative to find the 8 black phantoms around him. He had made up his mind to kill all the 8 guys who were in the way first, and then deal with the white phantom. The worst case scenario was that he failed once and came back an hour later. It must be said that although Chu Yun's bachelor's thinking was reckless, the destructive power it could cause was also extremely terrifying. As long as his Kai-Shan 8-fold strength could hit, a black phantom would be shattered on the spot. Then the second, the third. When the 4th phantom was broken, Chu Yun had already suffered some injuries. If he continued like this, he could kill 2 more phantoms, and he would no longer have the strength to fight. However, Chu Yun was not panicked at all. He took out a 9-turn rejuvenation pill from the system space, stuffed it into his mouth, and quickly refined the medicinal power. Immediately, Chu Yun's injuries began to recover rapidly, and the physical and spiritual power consumed by the previous battles were also recovering rapidly. After only a moment, his condition had almost returned to the peak. "I can take drugs, can you be resurrected?" Chu Yun snorted twice. The Black Phantom had no wisdom and could not answer him, but if it could, it would have cursed at this moment. Not long after, the 5th Black Phantom was killed, and then the 6th. When Chu Yun knocked down the second 9 Revolutions rejuvenation pill, the 8 Black Phantoms had been killed by Chu Yun, leaving only a white phantom, which looked lonely and pitiful, trembling in the distance. Chu Yun grinned, and then pounced fiercely. Only a few breaths of time passed. All 9 phantoms disappeared. And with the disappearance of the white phantom, a golden light ball appeared in front of Chu Yun. In the light ball, there was an ancient jade bottle with some blood in it. Chu Yun picked it up, unscrewed the bottle mouth, and put the blood to his nose and sniffed it. It was the smell of dragon blood, the blood of the Wanyan Earth Dragon. "I've heard that there is an important reward hidden on the 9th floor of the Tongshan Tower. I didn't expect it to be real. This bottle of blood essence is taken from the Wanyan Earth Dragon, the spiritual beast of the Yuan sect. After taking it, you can use the power of dragon blood to temper your body. It is an extremely rare treasure." Chu Yun was delighted. This was undoubtedly a huge surprise for him. Chu Yun immediately swallowed the bottle of Earth Dragon blood essence. Tun. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and summoned the martial soul Chai Yangtan Long to possess him to help refine the power of dragon blood. Dragons are the most domineering creatures in the world, and the aura in dragon blood is extremely violent. If a warrior with a weak foundation dares to take dragon blood rashly, he will explode and die immediately. However, after this bottle of Earth Dragon blood essence entered Chu Yun's body, it not only did not reveal any violent meaning, but was extremely gentle like a stream of clear spring water. Although the Earth Dragon is powerful, it is only a sub-dragon species, not a real dragon. My scorching sun dragon martial spirit is a top existence even among real dragons. I want to refine your blood essence, so why don't you be honest? Chu Yun smiled complacently. After refining, Chu Yun's body and muscles became more solid, and his strength increased by at least 30%. If he were to break through the Tongshan Tower again, it would be easier than before. Maybe when he reaches the 9th floor, he won't even need to take a pill. Chu Yun let out a long breath, stood up and walked into the light ball. Ding! Congratulations, the mission is completed. The mission reward, 1 spiritual bait, 3 ordinary baits, has been issued to your system space. Please check it. With a swish, Chu Yun's figure disappeared from the spot and was teleported to the square outside the Tongshan Tower. Dozens of trialists who failed the challenge were teleported out with him. Their sudden appearance shocked everyone outside the Tower of Babel, because according to the mechanism of the Tower of Babel, it was fixed to transmit once every hour, but this time it was ahead of schedule. Could it be because someone opened the 9th floor of the Tower of Babel? Someone muttered. After the voice fell, there was silence all around, because at this moment, they were still immersed in the intense shock. Just now, they saw with their own eyes that a light spot stopped flashing on the 9th floor of the Tower of Babel, and then golden light shone. It was obviously not a failure of the trial, but someone successfully opened the 9th floor of the Tower of Babel, completing an unprecedented achievement in the Yuan sect. At this time, the disciples were so shocked that they could not speak. Even Liu Ong fell into silence. When that person opened the 7th floor, he was not convinced, and when he opened the 8th floor, he He was shocked and astonished. Now, that person opened the 9th floor. This made Liu Ong feel like he had returned to the past. At that time, he had limited talent and average strength. He could only watch those geniuses easily accomplish things that he could not do at all. And now, this feeling of powerlessness appeared again. Even though he had seized Chu Yun's martial soul and became a genius with twin martial souls, he still felt extremely powerless when facing this mysterious person. It was as if they were not of the same species at all, and the gap was so big that it made people despair. Not only him, but other disciples also thought so. Now they just wanted to see who the fierce man who opened the 9-story Tongshan Tower was. If it were not for the restrictions on the Tongshan Tower that prohibited warriors above the Qianjun realm from entering, they would have thought that some elder had entered. However, everyone found nothing and did not see the figure of that person. Because this group of trial participants were teleported out in advance and suddenly appeared in the square, it caused a commotion at the time. Chu Yun, who was in disguise, seized this opportunity and left the crowd, hiding his merits and fame. But Chu Yun also didn't notice that when he left, a pair of beautiful eyes quietly noticed him. The owner of those eyes was Zhao Lingaling. Chapter 9, Shadow Step. Who is it? Who opened the Babel Tower? The question spread among the crowd, like a wave, confusing the many trialists who had just been teleported out of the Babel Tower. In fact, these trialists were also wondering why they were teleported out in advance. After hearing the discussions around them, they were shocked to learn that someone had opened the Babel Tower. When the people around asked who had opened the Babel Tower, the confused trialists shook their heads one after another, and no one stood up. One person is missing. A disciple with good eyesight took a look at the number of trialists present and said, "There are a total of 79 trialists in this batch, but only 78 are present. Did that person disappear? Who is he?" The huge question made everyone unable to stop, and only a beautiful figure stood by, thinking. The person who took advantage of the chaos just now was senior brother Chu Yun. Zhao Lingaling tilted her head, confusion in her eyes. Her martial soul, named Three-Eyed Spirit Cat, has a gift for enhancing her eyesight. This ability allows her to more easily detect flaws in her opponent's moves during a fight. Although Chu Yun's disguise fooled everyone around him, Zhao Lingaling could recognize him at a glance. Hasn't he been abolished? Why is he here, disguised? Zhao Lingaling muttered, and suddenly she was startled. She turned her head and looked at the 9-story Tongshan Tower, which was shining with golden light. Disbelief appeared in her smart eyes. What happened in the Tongshan Tower spread throughout the sect in a very short time. Immediately, everyone in Yuan sect was in great shock, and the incident was so popular that everyone knew about it. Even the sect master of Yuan sect, Shangyu and Zenren, and the masters of each peak were asking who the disciple who opened the Tongshan Tower was. They used almost all means to investigate the identity of that person and try to find him out. It is no exaggeration to call a person who can do such a thing a peerless genius. As long as this person stands up and reveals his identity, countless honors, resources, and status will be showered on him like a rainstorm. But this person never showed up. This puzzled many people, especially those young disciples who were eager to become famous. They scratched their heads and couldn't figure out why the person didn't seize such a great opportunity. Glory, honor. What's the use? Chu Yun was once a great senior brother of the sect, but in the end, his martial spirit was taken away by someone and he became a useless person. In such a world where martial arts are respected, the most important thing is always to improve one's own strength. External things are not important. Chu Yun snorted twice and shook his head. He returned to Zheoking Peak, sat on the fishing platform, hung the spiritual bait that the system had just rewarded on the fishing rod, threw it into the water with a swish, and started fishing. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the spiritual level martial arts shadow stealing step. Great perfection. The system prompt sounded in his mind. This was Chu Yun's first time using spiritual bait for fishing, and what he caught was, as expected, a spiritual level martial arts of great perfection. Ordinary bait can only catch ordinary martial arts, but this spiritual bait can catch spiritual martial arts. The ball of light floated into Chu Yun's body and turned into many enlightened principles. which made Chu Yun completely master the spiritual level body movement of the Great Perfection realm in an instant, and he was extremely happy for a while. In Chu Yun's view, among all the rewards, the first one is the reward of martial arts cultivation type. This kind of reward can directly enhance his cultivation realm and greatly improve his combat power. Secondly, it is the martial arts experience of great perfection or martial arts enlightenment, both of which can also bring him a great improvement in strength. On the first night after arriving in this world, Chu Yun was attacked, which made him feel insecure. Before his strength was improved enough to fight against the great elder leader, Chu Yun felt that it was better for him to keep a low profile. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained an ice crystal sword, ordinary. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 ghost moon grass spirit seeds. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 years of martial arts cultivation. After using up the spiritual bait, Chu Yun used the remaining 3 ordinary baits to fish, and unexpectedly received a martial arts cultivation reward. When the white light ball turned into light spots and flew into Chu Yun's body, his cultivation immediately began to soar again. From the peak of the 3rd level of Qianjun realm, he instantly broke through to the 4th level of Qianjun realm, then the 5th and 6th levels of Qianjun realm, and then improved to the 7th level of Qianjun realm before finally stopping. After a long time, Chu Yun adjusted his breath and exhaled, and opened his eyes again. 2 rays of light flashed in his eyes, exuding a deep and sharp aura. Qianjun realm, 7th grade. The corners of his lips slowly raised a little arc. Finally, he restored his previous cultivation level, and on top of that, he made a new breakthrough and reached the 7th grade of Qianjun realm. At this time, compared with Chu Yun who once possessed the Earth Demon Ape, his cultivation level was only 2 grades lower, but his combat power could be said to be worlds apart. In a word, it is not an exaggeration to say that 3 Chu Yuns in their peak period tied together are not the opponents of Chu Yun today. This is the fact. Okay, sleep peacefully and continue to do the task tomorrow. Chu Yun returned to his residence with satisfaction and fell asleep. Cultivation? What is that? It doesn't exist. I will become stronger by fishing. The next day, early in the morning, Chu Yun slept until he woke up naturally, then walked down Zheokingfen comfortably and continued to wander around the sect. Unlike the past, Chu Yun could hear all kinds of people talking about his opening up the Tower of Babel yesterday. Most of them were amazed and confused, wondering what kind of ability that mysterious person had to achieve this. At the same time, they were also guessing who the mysterious person really was. However, some people were questioning. They doubted whether this person existed or not. After all, no one had seen anyone opening up the Tower of Babel layer by layer. People outside could only see a light spot that kept going up and finally shone brightly on the 9th floor. What if this was not a real person? Is it possible that there was something wrong with the Tower of Babel itself? Is it possible that no one could open up the Tower of Babel? Many people also supported this speculation. After all, for most people, this kind of thing was too incredible. In Yuan sect, most disciples can only reach the 3rd or 4th floor, a few geniuses can reach the 5th or 6th floor, and the 7th floor is already 1 in 10,000. Now, a fierce man suddenly appears and opens up all 9 floors of the Tongshan Tower. How can ordinary disciples accept this? If this is true, then compared to that terrifying existence, they will appear too insignificant and simply not worth mentioning, so they would rather believe that it is not true. As for this self-deceiving idea, Chu Yun just smiled and said nothing. Chapter 10 The Sweeper. Hey, have you heard? The elder leader just went to the Tongshan Tower to check it out in person and found that the reward of the Earth Dragon blood stored on the 9th floor had been taken away. This means that the fierce man who opened the Tongshan Tower actually exists. Is it true? Is there really someone so fierce? The elder has personally checked it out. How could it be false? The elder also said that he didn't know why the disciple chose not to show up, but he could make a guarantee that as long as he revealed his identity, no matter what concerns he had, the elder could help him solve them, and no matter what resources and status he wanted, the sect would satisfy him. Any conditions are okay? This is too enviable. Walking in the sect, Chu Yun heard such a conversation. Immediately, a strange expression appeared on his face. Li Dairun said that he could help him solve any concerns, but Li Dairun certainly didn't know that Chu Yun's biggest concern now was Li Dairun himself. The only way to resolve the concerns is to let Li Dairun end his life on his own. But Chu Yun estimated that this great elder, whose word was law, would definitely not be so generous. Chu Yun was strolling leisurely on Mingzhou Peak and passed by the library. Since he had just triggered a task here yesterday, Chu Yun had no plans to come again in the short term and was about to leave. Ding. Task triggered. Task content: clean the library courtyard. Task time limit: within half an hour. Task reward: 3 ordinary baits. When the system prompt sounded, Chu Yun was stunned for a moment, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. What's going on? The task of cleaning the library courtyard was triggered again. Wasn't it triggered yesterday? Chu Yun looked at the library unexpectedly, his eyes full of suspicion. Could it be that this library had something special that was worth the system issuing tasks again and again? However, since the task had been issued, Chu Yun would not just stand there and stare. He strode into the library, picked up the broom in the corner, and began to clean. Dong, dong, dong. The bell of Chen rang, and an old man in gray walked into the courtyard. When he saw Chu Yun, he was startled again. Little guy, why are you here again? Zhu Bo asked with a wry smile. Chu Yun was sweeping the yard while responding. Didn't I say yesterday that I wanted to help you share the pressure? So how could I sweep the floor for a whole day? As he said this, he had already made up his mind to come to the library again tomorrow to see if the sweeping task would continue to be triggered. Zhu Bo opened his mouth and stared at Chu Yun's figure sweeping the floor for a while. He really couldn't figure out what this former genius disciple wanted to do. People always have to make a profit when doing things. The biggest benefit of Zhu Bo is that he is in charge of the library and has the right to browse the books. But this power is already possessed by many disciples. As an inner disciple, a true disciple of Yifeng, and a former senior brother of the sect, Chu Yun has no restrictions on the library at all. He doesn't need anyone's permission to go in and browse the books. In other words, Zhu Bo was of no use to him, so what was the point of him sweeping the floor so hard every day? You can't really want to take care of an old widow like me, right? Zhu Bo smiled bitterly and shook his head. The next day, Chu Yun also got up early and went directly to the library. Ding. Task triggered. Task content: clean the courtyard of the library. Task time limit: within half an hour. Task reward: 3 ordinary baits. The familiar system prompt sounded, and Chu Yun raised his eyebrows, revealing a complex expression that was both unexpected and expected. Is the task really triggered again? Could it be that this library is a bug location where tasks can be refreshed regularly? There is such a good thing? Chu Yun rubbed his chin hard, puzzled. However, after triggering tasks everywhere these days, he also found a pattern. That is, whenever there is a gathering of spiritual energy or a relatively important place, it is easier to trigger some tasks. The library is undoubtedly one of the most important places in Yuan sect. Although the frequency of triggering tasks is a bit outrageous, it still conforms to this rule. Uncle Zhu, you got up so early today, and you look so energetic. Chu Yun pushed the door open and went in. As soon as he entered the yard, he saw Uncle Zhu, wearing a familiar gray shirt, sweeping the floor with a broom. And it was not yet morning. I was afraid that you would come again today and steal my work. Uncle Zhu snorted twice. Chu Yun laughed and said, It's not stealing my work, I'm just helping you share the pressure. As he said that, he picked up another broom from the corner and followed Uncle Zhu to clean. Alas, I really don't know what's wrong with you. Zhu Bo looked at Chu Yun, who was full of enthusiasm, and sighed softly, saying, I know that you were the eldest brother of the Yuan sect. Now you have fallen from a high place, and you must feel bad, but you don't have to numb yourself with these things. You are still young, and if you don't practice martial arts, you can go on other paths. Chu Yun smiled and said, I appreciate your kindness, but it's really impossible to numb yourself. In my opinion, respecting the old and loving the young is what we should do. In the past, I was busy practicing and couldn't take care of these, but now I don't need to practice, and I have a lot of time. It's okay to help you, These words are Chu Yun's true thoughts. He is not a native of this world, and his mind is not strong in the idea that martial arts are respected and strength is everything. Living in the 21st century, he is still very kind under the influence of the core values of socialism. Okay. Zubo smiled bitterly twice, sighed regretfully, and said nothing more. Then, the two cleaned up the courtyard. Ding. Congratulations, the mission is completed. The mission reward, 3 ordinary baits, has been issued to your system space. Please check it. The system prompt sounded, and Chu Yun was satisfied and was about to leave. Don't leave in a hurry, Zubo called him and said slowly. You've been busy all morning. Come to my place to rest and have a cup of tea. Okay, then I'll bother you. Chu Yun smiled casually, and did not refuse, and followed Zubo. They came to a corner of the courtyard of the library, where there was a small hut, which was Zubo's residence. Every day at noon, Zubo would come out of this hut to clean the library, and he had been doing this for decades. Before Shang Yun Zenren became the leader of the sect, Zubo had already been sweeping the floor in the library. In terms of seniority, there were not many people in the entire Yuan sect who were older than Zubo. No matter how old you are just a sweeper. Zubo smiled faintly and poured a cup of tea for Chu Yun. The tea bowl was not new. There were many lines on the porcelain surface left by the years, and there were several gaps at the mouth of the bowl, but Chu Yun didn't care. He sniffed deeply, and a light and sweet smell emerged. His eyes lit up immediately, and he said good tea, and then drank it all in one gulp. I grew this tea myself. How does it taste? Very good. Chu Yun gave a high evaluation and said, it's obviously ordinary green tea, but it has an extra sweet fragrance. Did you use any special tea growing method? I saw the tea growing method in the book Songling Travels and tried it. Hearing Chu Yun's praise, Zubo stroked his beard and smiled lightly. Do you like to read this kind of books? Chu Yun asked casually. I read them all. Zubo paused and shook his head again. I haven't read them in recent years. Chu Yun nodded, thinking that Zubo had been guarding the library for decades. Even if he was interested in reading books earlier, he should be bored after so many years, right? However, the truth that Zubo didn't say was that he had read all the millions of books in the library over the past few decades, including martial arts, travelogues, and poetry. Moreover, he didn't just read books, he had a photographic memory, and he would never forget a book after reading it once. Now, he had no books to read. Chapter 11 Yuxiu Peak. After chatting with Zubo for a while, Chu Yun stood up to say goodbye. As soon as he walked out of the library, a 15 or 16-year-old girl in a white dress came towards him. Big brother, you are here as expected. The little girl grinned. Minayu. Chu Yun saw the other party, paused slightly, and smiled. The sun really rises from the west, and you actually come to the library? Hate it. I am also very studious, Minayu said dissatisfiedly, and then added, my master asked me to come to you. Come with me to Yuxiu Peak. Yuling Zenren is looking for me? What's the matter? Chu Yun touched his nose. This Yuling Zenren is the 5th elder of Yuan sect and the master of Yuxiu Peak. He is in charge of alchemy and medical practice in the sect. Chu Yun and Yuling Zenren have no relationship, but the relationship between Chu Yun's master Zhu Jinsan and Yuling Zenren is extraordinary. These two people once had a relationship, although they failed to become Taoist couples due to some reasons. Their friendship was still extraordinary. Since Zhu Jinsong disappeared 3 years ago, Chu Yun has been taken care of by Yuling Zenren in the sect. Even when Chu Yun's martial soul was taken away and he fled back to the sect, it was Yuling Zenren who cured him. Otherwise, such a serious injury might endanger Chu Yun's life. Master didn't say it. Minayu Zhao snorted and made a face at him. I won't tell you even if he said it. Okay, then I won't ask. Let's go. Chu Yun smiled bitterly and followed Minayu to leave Mingzhou Peak and headed all the way to Yuxiu Peak. After a while, the two arrived at Yuxiu Peak. Walking on the mountain path, Chu Yun often saw some injured disciples coming to Yuxiu Peak to seek medical treatment. Is the training so safe now? The number of injured disciples seems to have decreased a lot, Chu Yun asked casually. He remembered that there were hundreds of disciples coming to Yuxiu Peak to heal their injuries every day, but now it is obviously less. When the matter was mentioned, the little girl seemed a little angry. She snorted and said, "It's the new ninth elder who is trying to steal our business everywhere." Minyu stamped her feet, but didn't say anything more. Chu Yun was a little surprised when she heard this. This ninth elder came to Yuan sect a year ago. He was not a native of Linghai region, but traveled from the more distant west. He was proficient in witch-doctor techniques and was good at using insects to treat diseases. Although his methods were extreme, they were also very effective, so he took away many wounded people from Yuxiu Peak. Nowadays, there are many disciples in the sect who will go to Wuyan Peak instead of Yuxiu Peak when they are injured. This situation will naturally make the disciples of Yuxiu Peak dissatisfied. Not long after, the two of them followed the mountain path to the top of the peak and walked into a hall. "Master, the eldest brother is here." Minyu led Chu Yun to the door of a quiet room, knocked on the door gently, and said, "Let him in." A cold female voice came from inside the door. Minyu nodded to Chu Yun and opened the door for him to enter. When Chu Yun walked into the door, he could smell the aroma of medicine. There were medicine cabinets as high as the wall all around, and several huge furnaces in the middle, all used for alchemy. At this moment, a middle-aged woman in a white robe, with a meticulous bun, was sitting in front of the largest furnace. "Meet Uncle Master." Chu Yun cupped his hands and bowed to Yuling Zenran. There are many elders in Yuan sect, but not all of them can be called Uncle Master. Yuling Zenran was once Zhu Jinsong's junior sister, so Chu Yun can call her that. Yuling Zenran glanced at him and spoke very directly, saying, "From today on, you leave Ziokin Peak and transfer to my Yuxiu Peak. I will accept you as my disciple." Chu Yun was stunned when he heard this, thinking that my opening of the Tower of Babel was exposed. Why would Yuling Zenran take the initiative to accept him as a disciple? "What? It's settled," Yuling Zenran said in a tone that could not be refused. "I don't know whether you are discouraged or escaping from reality, but in short, you can't continue like this. In Ziokin Peak, you have no one to take care of you, and sooner or later you will be targeted. If you join my sect, at least no one will dare to bully you. Now that your martial soul has been taken away, your martial arts path has been cut off, but it is by no means worthless from now on. In Yuxiu Peak, I will teach you to cultivate spirit seeds, refine elixirs and make medicines. In the future, you can become a pure doctor, which is better than living a mediocre life." Chu Yun's heart warmed up when he finished speaking. Only then did he know that Yuling Zenran had heard that he had been wandering around outside doing nothing these days, and out of kindness, wanted to arrange a way out for him, a jerk who couldn't practice. This was a good intention, and Chu Yun also understood it. But as for agreeing, forget it. If he became a disciple of Yuxiu Peak, although he would be protected by Yuling Zenran, his safety would be greatly improved. But Chu Yun would definitely not have the opportunity to trigger tasks everywhere, which was absolutely unacceptable to him. So, Chu Yun pondered for a moment and said, "Zenran, I appreciate your kindness, but please forgive me for not being able to obey your order. Once a teacher, always a father. Master has treated me well. No matter what, I cannot change my sect and become a disciple of someone else. Please forgive me, uncle." This reason was naturally an excuse made by Chu Yun. He also had to find an excuse, otherwise, with Yuling Zenran's strong personality, he would definitely force him to become a disciple of Yuxiu Peak. As expected, after hearing this, Jade Spirit glared at him with her almond-shaped eyes and said, "You are so young, how can you be so stubborn? That dead man is my senior brother. How can you be considered to have changed your sect by becoming my disciple?" When Chu Yun heard her scolding his master as a dead man in person, he could only smile bitterly and pretend not to hear it. Then he shook his head stubbornly and said, "Even so, it won't work. If I, Chu Yun, take someone else as my master just to seek stability, I would be too self-deprecating." Having said that, in order to cut off his retreat, Chu Yun took another step forward and said loudly, "So, please take back your decision, uncle. If you insist on forcing me to enter Yuxiu Peak, then I will have no choice but to die to prove my loyalty." Upon hearing this, Jade Spirit was so angry that his teeth were itching and his whole body was shaking. He pointed at Chu Yun and said, "You are exactly the same as your heartless master, a stone in the toilet, smelly and hard." Well, If you don't agree, then I won't agree. Let's see who will regret it in the future. Get out of here. Okay. Seeing that Yu Lingzhenren had changed his mind, Chu Yun turned around and ran away. Not long after he left, he turned back and glanced at Yu Lingzhenren, who was still angry. He laughed and said, "Please calm down. Losing your temper is not good for your health. Oh, by the way, here are some small gifts I prepared for you. I'll leave them here." Seeing Yu Lingzhenren's unfriendly eyes sweeping over, Chu Yun put a small cloth bag at the door and hurriedly ran away. HMPH. Yu Lingzhenren snorted coldly, then glanced at the cloth bag, grabbed it with her bare hands, and the cloth bag flew into the air and fell into her hands. When she opened it, she saw all kinds of spiritual seeds inside. They were all rewards that Chu Yun had caught before, such as the spirit-gathering grass, the orchid grass, etc., which were very valuable. Yu Lingzhenren's eyes showed a trace of surprise. If these spiritual seeds were cultivated, each one would be worth 1,000 gold. Where did Chu Yun get them from? After thinking for a while and still not being able to figure it out, Yu Lingzhenren simply put it away and snorted lightly. He still has some conscience, better than his master. As he said that, Yu Lingzhenren called Minaiyu outside the door. "Master, what do you want me to do?" Minaiyu asked crisply. Yu Lingzhenren said lightly, "Go and tell that stinky stone that if he doesn't enter Yuxiu Peak, he can come to Yuxiu Peak often to practice medicine." "Yes." Minaiyu accepted the order with a smile, thinking that the master is indeed the same as before, with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Chapter 12 Missing. Not long after Chu Yun left the hall, Minaiyu caught up and relayed Yu Lingzhenren's words. "Haha, then thank my uncle for me." Chu Yun grinned. Minaiyu nodded her head vigorously, then looked at Chu Yun and sighed. "Then you must come to Yuxiu Peak often in the future. Now you can't practice. If you don't learn medical skills, how can you survive in the future?" Chu Yun touched his nose and didn't refute. He really couldn't practice now because it was a waste of time. He could fish and become stronger by just wandering around and doing tasks every day. Why would he practice so hard? "Let's go. I'll come back when I have time." Chu Yun waved his hand and left Yuxiu Peak along the mountain path. When he reached the middle of the mountain, a figure just came out of the practice room. After seeing Chu Yun, he was slightly startled, and then he changed his mind and followed him. This figure was Ling, the true disciple of Yuxiu Peak. That day, under the Tongshan Tower, after Chu Yun cleared the 9-story Tongshan Tower and left, it also triggered a wave of trial enthusiasm. Many disciples saw that the sky was clear and the rain had stopped, and they felt that they were ready, so they flocked to the Tongshan Tower. The result was naturally obvious. The trial results of most of them were not much different from before. The momentary enthusiasm caused by the stimulation soon subsided, but among them, there were two who were particularly persistent, namely Liu Ong and Ling. They didn't believe that the gap between people in the same sect would be so big. They all thought that the person who passed the level might just have mastered some unknown skills, so they tried again and again. As a result, after several challenges, both of them were injured. As a result, they failed to pass their respective levels and were still stuck on the 6th and 7th floors. It was not until today that Ling recovered from her injuries. Unexpectedly, she saw Chu Yun on Yuxiu Peak. "The person I saw that day was senior brother Chu Yun. Maybe the mysterious man who opened the 9-story Tower of Babel was also him." Ling guessed in her heart. When the entire sect was looking for the mysterious genius like crazy, she had such a guess in her heart early on, but she didn't tell anyone because it was too incredible. One is a mysterious genius who opened the 9-story Tower of Babel, and the other is a useless senior brother whose martial spirit was taken away. The difference between these two images is too far. At this moment, Ling saw Chu Yun's back coming down the mountain. After a little thought, she decided to follow him to see. She didn't believe that Chu Yun was really as the outside world rumored that he had become depressed and idle. She wanted to observe quietly and uncover the mystery of Chu Yun. After leaving Yuxiu Peak, it was past noon. Chu Yun was walking around Yuxiu Peak. He would touch any strange spiritual herbs or stones he saw. This was a habit he had developed recently. Perhaps a certain touch would trigger a new task. However, after touching for a long time, he did not get anything. 2 hours passed quickly and the sky gradually darkened. This made Chu Yun a little disappointed. Little did he know that Zhao Lingling, who was following Chu Yun in the dark, was also disappointed. What on earth is he doing? Zhao Lingling tilted her head and looked at Chu Yun, a little confused. Is there something left at Yuxiu Peak? What is he looking for? There was no answer. After a while, seeing that the sky was getting dark, Chu Yun decided to go back. There was no rush to trigger a task. Anyway, when he went to the library tomorrow, he would probably have another sweeping task triggered. He was not in a hurry. However, on the way back to Zheoking Peak, Chu Yun encountered some unexpected situations. Several disciples from Mingwang Peak were looking around the sect like him. When Chu Yun first saw the other party's appearance, he thought he had met a colleague, but after listening carefully, he realized that it was not the case. They were looking for someone, and while looking, they shouted the other party's name, Song Yunchang. Chu Yun had no interest in getting involved, but at this moment, the system prompt sounded suddenly. Ding! Task triggered. Task content: find the whereabouts of Song Yunchang. Task time limit: within 1 day. Task reward: 5 ordinary baits. As soon as the voice fell, Chu Yun naturally became excited immediately, so he walked forward. Everyone, are you looking for someone? Chu Yun said with a smile. The disciples were startled when they heard the words, and when they saw that the person coming was Chu Yun, their expressions were a little strange. The leader nodded and replied, yes, I wonder if the eldest brother has seen a young disciple from Mingwang Peak, with short hair and short stature, named Song Yunchang. Chu Yun shook his head, and the eyes of the opposite people soon showed disappointment. I haven't seen him, but I can help you find him. Chu Yun paused and asked with a smile, did he disappear, or did he run away on his own? Do you need to look for him everywhere? He is missing. The leading disciple didn't want to say anything more, but seeing that Chu Yun was friendly and didn't seem to be teasing them, he patiently said a few more words. A few days ago, junior brother Song's sister was injured and needed a rare spiritual medicine called Thunder God Grass to heal. Junior brother Song went to Yuxiu Peak to ask for medicine, and then disappeared. Oh, what did the people from Yuxiu Peak say? Chu Yun raised his eyebrows. The man replied, Deacon Bei from Yuxiu Peak said that he had seen junior brother Song, but there was no Thunder God Grass on Yuxiu Peak. Junior brother Song went down a mountain after asking for medicine to no avail. During this process, many disciples from Yuxiu Peak saw him leave, but no one has seen him since then. It has been 2 days and 1 night now. As he said this, the disciple couldn't help but sigh. Chu Yun heard this and seemed to be thinking about something. Thunder God Grass is a rare spiritual grass with a very special growth environment. It can only grow in an environment with heavy thunderstorms. Looking at the entire Yuan sect, there is a place that quite meets this characteristic. That is the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land. This place was originally the site of Zheoling Peak. Many years ago, Yuan sect was attacked by a beast tide, led by an extremely terrifying Thunder Roar beast, ranked 5th grade. That battle caused Yuan sect to suffer heavy losses. Although Lei Hu was eventually killed, the entire Zheoling Peak was also destroyed. Not only that, after Lei Hu died, his body also polluted the entire Zheoling Peak's veins, causing the peak to be covered with dark clouds all year round, thundering continuously, and demonic energy everywhere, which was extremely dangerous. In desperation, Yuan sect could only seal off Zheoling Peak and list it as a forbidden area, prohibiting disciples from entering it. Since the missing Song Yunchang wanted to get a Thunder God Grass, Chu Yun estimated that he would most likely venture into the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land. Chapter 13 Thunder Roar Forbidden Land. However, Chu Yun did not speak out this conjecture, because for these ordinary disciples in front of him, the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land is an extremely dangerous area. Even for those disciples who are called geniuses, the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land is also a place that cannot be easily set foot in. If you are not careful, you will be injured. Chu Yun can only go and see for himself. Is he planning to enter the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land? In secret, Zhao Lingling followed Chu Yun, leaving Yuxiu Peak and heading all the way to the ruins of the former Zheoling Peak. At first, Zhao Lingling didn't know why Chu Yun suddenly changed his path, But when she saw the direction Chu Yun was heading, she had this terrible conjecture in her mind. There is no doubt that for any disciple of the Yuan sect, the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land is an area that cannot be touched. Even those strong men at the level of deacons dare not cross the line lightly. What is he going to do? Dao Lingaling was nervous and expectant. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Maybe this has something to do with his secret. Seeing Chu Yun come to the edge of the seal of the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land, and then stepped in without hesitation, Dao Lingaling bit her lip and followed quietly. The seal of the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land is mainly aimed at the rampant demonic energy in the Forbidden Land, which can isolate it and prevent it from escaping to the outside world. In the Forbidden Land, because of the existence of this demonic energy, many terrifying demon beasts have been born, including some second-grade demon beasts comparable to the Qianjun realm, and there may even be third-grade demon beasts comparable to the Wanchai realm. As soon as he entered the Forbidden Land, Chu Yun clearly felt that the quality of the spiritual energy around him had changed. It was mixed with a cold breath and was no longer as pure as the outside world, which made him feel very uncomfortable, and there was also a bloody aura in the air. Chu Yun took a deep sniff, then slowly exhaled, and said, "Sure enough, it is the blood power of the Thunder Roar beast." He did not rush to enter the depths of the forbidden area, but searched around the entrance. If the missing disciple really entered the Thunder Roar Forbidden area, there would always be some traces left, especially at the entrance, because according to common sense, Song Yunchan, as an ordinary disciple, must have needed some time to adjust his mentality when facing the strange and dangerous environment around him when he broke into the forbidden area. This means that Song Yunchan must have stayed at the entrance for a long time, and he might have left some obvious traces. Now it has only been 2 days since Song Yunchan disappeared, and there has been no drastic weather changes in these 2 days. If you are more careful, you may be able to find some footprints. Chu Yun searched everywhere, and after a while, he really found some shallow footprints. It was left not long ago. Chu Yun smiled. Then, he followed the direction of the footsteps. Is he looking for someone? Dao Lingaling secretly observed Chu Yun, and only after seeing this scene did she realize, so he was planning to help those disciples find the missing Song Yunchan. I thought he was just asking casually before. Ah, yes, Song Yunchan needs Thunder God Grass, and this Thunder Roar Forbidden Land is indeed the most likely place to have this special spiritual grass. After getting this answer, Dao Lingaling looked at Chu Yun with a hint of tenderness and appreciation. She didn't have much interaction with her senior brother Chu Yun before, and only regarded Chu Yun as a competitor with outstanding talent. At the same time, she didn't know Chu Yun's temperament and character. However, just this short incident made Dao Lingaling respect him. I didn't expect that the senior brother was such a kind-hearted person. Just for a few ordinary disciples who had never met, he was willing to enter this Thunder Roar Forbidden Land alone to look for someone. I really shouldn't have thought of him like that before. She was referring to the fact that she had looked down on Chu Yun in the past. Before Chu Yun's 6th grade martial spirit was still there, it only opened the 6th floor of the Tower of Babel, just like her 4th grade martial spirit. Therefore, Dao Lingaling could not help but often think that if she also had a 6th grade martial spirit, she would definitely do better than Chu Yun. But now, Dao Lingaling would not think so, because with Chu Yun's character, even if Chu Yun was a weak person, she would give him the greatest respect. Chu Yun followed the shallow footprints all the way and gradually went deeper into the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land. Because of the blood power of the Thunder Roar beast, the depths of the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land are covered with clouds all year round, with lightning and thunder, and rain from time to time, and the ground has become muddy. The footprints can no longer be found in this wetland. However, this is also expected. Chu Yun is not surprised. He observed the surrounding bushes and often heard the roar of some monsters, which made him worried. This Thunder Roar Forbidden Land is full of monsters. Song Yunchan is just an ordinary outer disciple with low strength. He hasn't even reached the Qianjun realm. Could he have been eaten by monsters? He muttered. At this time, a rustling sound came quickly from behind Chu Yun. Chu Yun's eyebrows moved, turned around and pointed with one finger. Ordinary martial arts, piercing gold finger, great perfection. Chu Yun pointed with one finger, and golden light shone between his fingers, as if it was golden stone instead of flesh and blood. As soon as he pointed with one finger, a subtle sound was heard, a puff sound, which was the sound of penetrating flesh and blood, and at the same time there was a cracking sound of broken bones. A black wolf with blood-red hair, the huge body of the beast fell to the ground with a bang, and slid on the ground for a long time due to the inertia of the forward pounce, and even broke a tree trunk. A mere first-grade monster dared to sneak attack me. It's really unethical. Chu Yun shook his head. In this world, monsters are divided into grades, corresponding to the realm of warriors. The first grade corresponds to the physical realm, the second grade corresponds to the Qianjun realm, the third grade corresponds to the Wanshai realm, the fourth grade corresponds to the Shanghai realm, and the fifth grade corresponds to the Nirvana realm. Before the fifth grade, monsters have no wisdom and rely on instinct when fighting, except for some powerful monster races with special bloodlines. Most monsters are much weaker than human warriors of the same level. The black wolf that attacked Chu Yun is only a first-grade monster, barely comparable to a human warrior of the 7th or 8th grade of the physical realm. It dared to make trouble. It was really tired of living. However, it is too easy for a monster like this to kill an outer disciple like Song Yunchang. In this thunder roar forbidden land, any danger may make Song Yunchang go there without return. This is what Chu Yun is most worried about now. If Song Yunchang dies, Chu Yun really doesn't know if he can still complete the task. Chapter 14 Attack. On the other side, Dao Lingaling's pupils shrank when she saw this scene. He really still retains his extremely strong strength. He has not become an incompetent person because his martial soul was taken away. Dao Lingaling's eyes still had a look of amazement. Although the strength of the first-grade monster was very weak, Chu Yun's reaction was too smooth. If Dao Lingaling were to describe it in one word, it would be effortless. Too easy. Regardless of the amplitude of the action and the choice of timing, it was perfect and just right, which meant that the appearance of the black wolf was completely under Chu Yun's control and did not bring any surprises. It was as if Chu Yun just pushed away a branch in front of him afterwards, without any difficulty. This kind of effortless gesture was really too high. Before Chu Yun's martial soul was taken away, I'm afraid he only had this level of strength. Could it be that the taking away of his earth demon ape had no effect on his strength at all? Dao Lingaling was puzzled. Two people, one bright and one dark, continued to move forward. The deeper they went into the thunder roar of forbidden land, the denser the demonic energy became, but the roars around them gradually decreased. This is a rather abnormal phenomenon, but in fact, it is very easy to understand. There are many beast roars in the outer area, because those first-grade demon beasts have very low intelligence and do not know how to hide themselves, while in the depths of the forbidden area, most of the demon beasts that can appear here are second-grade demon beasts. They already have some instincts and reactions that are smarter than ordinary beasts and know how to hide themselves. Just like the law of the dark forest, the demon beasts are also the law of the jungle, and devouring the blood of other demon beasts is undoubtedly the best way to grow. However, not making a sound does not mean that there is no danger. On the contrary, those demon beasts are lurking in the dark, waiting for the arrival of prey, and launching a fatal attack at any time, which is more dangerous than the demon beasts wandering in the open. Chu Yun walked all the way. Since he lost the guidance of the footprints, he began to guess the route of the missing disciple according to his intuition. Thunder god grass grows in cold and gloomy places, such as the forests where monsters run rampant. It must be very rare. Even if there are any, they will be eaten by monsters, and it is not his turn to pick them up. Then, the place that is more suitable for the growth environment of thunder god grass is naturally the ruins of Xiaolai Peak. There are many unknown caves there. If Chu Yun is that Song Yunchang, he will definitely try his luck there. But before that, there is a problem that needs to be solved. That is the little tail behind. Where is he? Dao Lingaling followed all the way. Seeing Chu Yun's figure turning around a huge rock and then not appearing for a long time, she carefully stepped forward to explore, but found that there was no one behind the rock. Lost. Dao Lingaling's heart jumped, and her little heart began to pound. She looked around, looking at the dark and cold forest around her, and she shuddered immediately. This was a situation she did not expect, or rather, she ignored it. She never thought that she would lose him. What should I do now? Should I go back? Zhao Lingaling bit her lip in embarrassment. Her heart was tangled. Logically speaking, she should go back. Otherwise she might be in danger if she wandered around in this thunder roar forbidden land. Although she missed it this time, as long as Chu Yun was still there, she would have the opportunity to continue investigating in the future. But, where is the way back? Zhao Lingaling has the habit of remembering the way, but now, she has followed Chu Yun so far into the forbidden land. When she was following just now, she was always careful not to be discovered. Her attention was focused on Chu Yun. How could she remember such a long way? At this moment, she couldn't even tell the direction clearly. If it were an ordinary woman, she would definitely have a sense of abandonment that she was lost by the world, but Zhao Lingaling didn't. She was still very calm. After taking a few deep breaths, Zhao Lingaling decided to go back along the way she had just come, find those places with memory points, and then return to the original way little by little. This should be the safest way. But Zhao Lingaling hadn't walked far when she suddenly heard a sharp sound of breaking wind, coming from her side. What is that? Zhao Lingaling's face changed, and she caught a glimpse of a slender black shadow flying from the treetops. Under the thunder, it looked like a black lightning. In an instant, soul light appeared around Zhao Lingaling, and a spirit cat shadow quickly took shape. It was Zhao Lingaling's fourth-grade martial soul three-eyed spirit cat, with the martial soul in her body. Zhao Lingaling's body moved flexibly and leaped back. The black shadow failed to hit her, and fell to the ground. Its slender body coiled up, and then suddenly jumped up again. With a whoosh, the black shadow brushed the ground, as if flying, and attacked Zhao Lingaling's ankle, biting it hard. Zhao Lingaling screamed in pain, and beads of sweat had already appeared on her forehead. But her reaction speed was also extremely fast. The three-eyed spirit cat suddenly pounced and scratched out 3 cracks with one claw. The shadow was hit, and the scales on its tail exploded, leaving 3 hideous wounds, revealing bright red flesh. It was only then that Zhao Lingaling saw the true face of the shadow. It was a black python with black scales and more than 2 meters long. Its head was triangular, and it was staring coldly at its prey with a pair of emotionless vertical pupils. Black soul iron snake. It's bad. Zhao Lingaling pursed her lips and looked down at her snow-white calves. There were 2 black blood holes at the ankles, and they were already bleeding. The color of the blood was also black, revealing an uneasy breath of death. She was poisoned by the venom of the black soul iron snake. This black soul iron snake was ranked 2nd grade and had extremely strong combat power. The most deadly thing was its venom. As long as it bit the opponent, it would gradually lose its combat power. After being poisoned by snake venom, the poison will quickly flow into the blood. It only takes a few breaths to attack the heart. Although the poisoned person can use his own spiritual power to suppress the flow of the poison, this is by no means a long-term solution. The poison will still flow, but the time is just faster or slower. Moreover, if you choose to suppress the toxicity, then a large part of the poisoned person's own spiritual power will be divided. In actual combat, it means that only 60% to 70% of the strength can be maintained. For example, at this moment, when Zhao Lingaling began to suppress the poison, she clearly felt that a large part of her own spiritual power was lost, and even the soul light of the three-eyed spirit cat was much dimmer. Can't delay, fight to the death. Zhao Lingaling did not hesitate at all, drew her sword and rushed out, not retreating but advancing, killing the black soul iron snake. She had to kill the black soul iron snake in the shortest time, and then immediately leave the thunder roar forbidden land and return to Yuxiu Peak. Only in this way could she save her life. Otherwise, the longer she delays, the weaker her vitality will be, and the black soul iron snake will continue to consume her strength until she dies from the poison. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Hidden Weapons. The sharp sword light drew a perfect half-moon arc. Lightning flashed, illuminating the dark forest, but the sword light was more dazzling than the lightning. Swish, Zhao Lingaling swung her sword horizontally, and the black soul iron snake that jumped up below swept its tail and avoided Zhao Lingaling's fatal blow. Then the snake body twisted violently and wrapped around Zhao Lingaling's neck. Zhao Lingaling did not hesitate, and held the sword upright in front of her, raised the sword from bottom to top, and at the same time bent her waist to avoid the snake's entanglement. The sword light was raised, and the black soul iron snake could not avoid it. The snake tail twitched violently and slapped the sword body in Zhao Lingaling's hand. The huge force almost shook Zhao Lingaling's long sword out of her hand. Flaw! Zhao Lingaling's beautiful eyes flashed, and at this moment, there were 3 spiritual lights in her pupils in a triangular shape, rotating and flashing. That was the martial spirit talent of the three-eyed spirit cat at work, helping her see through the flaws of the black soul iron snake, as if she had practiced it thousands of times. Zhao Lingaling knew clearly what she should do next: possess her body, twist her waist, and use the force of the black soul iron snake hitting the sword body to spin around and strike with the sword. The direction where the sword blade falls will be the fatal 7-inch vital point of the black soul iron snake. One strike will be a sure kill. But a moment of weakness in her body ruined Zhao Lingaling's plan. The toxins in her body were taking effect, weakening Zhao Lingaling's strength by several percent. The snake body hit the sword body, and the huge force was transmitted to the tiger's mouth, which immediately cracked Zhao Lingaling's tiger's mouth. The snow-white little hand was stained red by the dazzling blood, and the long sword slipped out of her hand. With a click sound, Zhao Lingaling's sword had already fallen to the ground in the distance, and the black soul iron snake's emotionless vertical pupils full of murderous ore had already stared at her. Oops! Zhao Lingaling's face changed, and she immediately controlled her spirit three-eyed spirit cat to rush forward and attack. At the same time, she quickly retreated, and jumped up with a single step, trying to distance herself from the black soul iron snake and dodge backwards. Three-eyed spirit cat pounced forward, and its own spirit power was extremely unstable. The black soul iron snake attacked fiercely, and its snake body wrapped around it. With just one twist, it completely strangled the spirit and turned it into soul-light fragments. Puff! Zhao Lingaling spit out a mouthful of blood, her face turned pale, and she began to bear the backlash of the destruction of her spirit. But this is not over yet. The black soul iron snake stared at Zhao Lingaling in midair. Although it had no time to guerrilla attack, it suddenly opened its scarlet blood basin mouth. Its fangs bared fiercely, and it sprayed out 2 long and thin streams of venom. Spraying venom. It can actually spray venom. Zhao Lingaling's pupils shrank, and a trace of despair flashed in her eyes. Now, she had no way to avoid it. Are you going to die? Zhao Lingaling was unwilling. At this moment, a sound of breaking wind came from beside her. Before she could turn her head, her body was knocked into a broad chest and held horizontally. Swish, swish. The venom sprayed from behind, without touching her body. Zhao Lingaling's body was held by someone and fell to the ground. Only then did Zhao Lingaling have the opportunity to see clearly who saved her life. Big brother. Zhao Lingaling said softly in a daze. It's me. Chu Yun said softly, looking down at Zhao Lingaling, seeing the woman's confused face, raised his eyebrows, and naturally revealed a little playfulness in his eyes, and said, if you want to thank me, you can say it later. I want to hear why you followed me now. Zhao Lingaling's pretty face turned red. She didn't expect that she was discovered following Chu Yun, and it seemed that Chu Yun had known that she was following him. For a moment, she felt embarrassed. But soon, Zhao Lingaling realized that now was not the time to talk about this, because there was still a very deadly threat to the side that had not been resolved. Swish! The black shadow shot over, turned into a black lightning, and rushed towards Chu Yun. The black soul iron snake did not give up the hunting plan because of Chu Yun's appearance, and it seemed that it wanted to bury this Cheng Yejin who showed up halfway under its fangs. I hate snakes the most, Chu Yun muttered, and flicked his finger, and a silver light shot out from his hand. The black soul iron snake twisted its body in midair, trying to avoid the flight path of Chu Yun's hidden weapon in advance. But at this moment, the hidden weapon suddenly exploded. There was a bang. The silver light exploded and turned into a series of fine light spots, each of which represented a silver needle as thin as a cow's hair. densely packed forward and overwhelming. Swish, 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 the black soul iron snake passed through the rain of hidden weapons, but its body completely lost its momentum. It fell hard to the ground like an ice snake frozen in the winter, and shook a few times like a spasm. With just one blow, the ferocious black soul iron snake was killed. Chu Yun glanced at the corpse of the black soul iron snake. He didn't like this kind of animal since he was a child, so he didn't plan to have any contact with it at this moment. He used the hidden weapon rewarded by the system. Now it seems that the effect is not bad, saving him some trouble. Dead? Dead? Now Ling-a-Ling stared at the black soul iron snake on the ground in a daze, and then looked at Chu Yun, who was holding her in his arms. His mind was a little confused for a while. Chu Yun put her on a relatively flat stone platform and said, "Can you answer my question now, junior sister Ling-a-Ling?" Now Ling-a-Ling came back to her senses, and then said with a twisted look, "I actually don't mean any harm." "Yeah." Chu Yun nodded and said, "I believe this, otherwise I wouldn't come out to save you." "Then, why did you follow me and go deep into the forbidden area?" Now Ling-a-Ling hesitated for a moment, then lowered her head, and decided to be honest, so she said, "I just want to confirm whether the mysterious person who opened the Babel Tower that day was you, because that day, I saw someone leaving the Babel Tower. Although that person was disguised, his body outline and walking posture were very similar to you, senior brother Chu Yun, so I see." Chu Yun nodded, with a bitter smile on his face. He thought that his disguise was flawless before, but in fact, his underwear was exposed, and Zhao Ling-a-Ling recognized him at a glance. "I have to be more serious about disguising my identity next time. It would be best to see if I can catch some rewards. My own makeup is too lame," Chu Yun muttered in his heart. He glanced at Zhao Ling-a-Ling and saw that she was talking with an increasingly ugly expression. He knew that the other party was suffering from the venom of the snake, so he said, as the saying goes, curiosity kills the cat. It's true. Chapter 16, Detoxification Pill. Listening to Chu Yun's sarcasm, Zhao Ling-a-Ling smiled bitterly, but she couldn't refute it, because the fact is, it is true. This three-eyed civet cat of hers is about to be killed by her own curiosity. Gently pulling up the hem of her skirt, Zhao Ling-a-Ling can clearly see that the place where her ankle was bitten is now purple and black, and deep purple blood lines are spreading up along her crystal-like calves, already over her knees. The surface is already so serious, but in fact, no one knows where the poison has gone. Before, Zhao Ling-a-Ling estimated that she might have a quarter of an hour after being poisoned, but because of the fierce battle just now, her spiritual power could not completely suppress the spread of the poison, which caused the time of this poison method to be greatly increased. Maybe she will die in the blink of an eye. I never thought that I would die here in the end. Zhao Ling-a-Ling sighed lightly. Chu Yun glanced at her and asked, "It's just a bite from a poisonous snake. Why do you take life and death lightly? You are a true disciple of Yuxi. Zhao Ling-a-Ling heard this and smiled bitterly again. She shook her head and said, "I don't have time to get back. It won't be long before I will die of the poison." As she spoke, Zhao Ling-a-Ling pursed her lips. If she was outside, it would be fine. Every time she went out to train, Zhao Ling-a-Ling would bring enough elixirs, whether for healing or detoxification. As a true disciple of Yuxi, she had no shortage of them. But, at this moment, she was in the sect. It was impossible for her to carry those detoxification pills all the time. After all, who would have thought that she would encounter such a deadly threat in the sect? Chu Yun shook his head, looking at the other parties calm and waiting to die. He couldn't help but curl his lips, then took out a pill bottle from the system space, and said, "Eat it, I have a detoxification pill here." Zhao Ling-a-Ling's eyes flashed, but soon dimmed, and said, "It's too late. This is the poison of the second-grade monster, and I'm already deeply poisoned. Ordinary detoxification pills can't play any role at all." As she spoke, Zhao Ling-a-Ling still took the detoxification pill. After all, she didn't really want to die. Even if there was a little effect, she wanted to try it. The pill melted in her mouth and turned into a cool breath, flowing into her body. The calf invaded by the snake venom was already in pain, numb, and gradually unable to move, but at this moment, the cool warmth flowing into the body immediately relieved the painful feeling greatly. Dao Lingaling couldn't help but exclaimed softly, closed her eyes comfortably, and her long eyelashes trembled slightly. After a long drought, the sweet dew came. This was her most real feeling at the moment. The drug power went down and soon reached her poisoned calf, crushing along the blood vessels, directly purifying and removing the wanton toxins. When Dao Lingaling opened her eyes, her beautiful eyes were full of vitality again. She looked down in surprise and found that a stream of dark green poison had flowed out of her calf, dripping down her smooth ankle and onto the ground, corroding the entire grass. "What kind of detoxification pill is this? It's so effective?" Dao Lingaling said in surprise. Chu Yun didn't answer, but handed her a handkerchief calmly, saying, "Wipe it off." Dao Lingaling blushed, and quickly adjusted her skirt, took the handkerchief, wiped the poison off her ankle, and carefully bandaged the wound, and whispered, "Big brother, thank you so much. I can't repay you for saving my life. Do you want to marry me?" Chu Yun smiled and asked. It was just a joke, but Dao Lingaling's pretty face flushed immediately. Her big eyes were full of surprise and confusion. She didn't know how to answer Chu Yun. "I was just kidding. Don't take it seriously." Chu Yun didn't expect Dao Lingaling to be such an innocent girl. He felt a little embarrassed, so he coughed twice and quickly skipped the topic. He said, "You are a disciple of Yuxi Upik. I am often taken care of by Yuang Zenran. It is my duty to save you. Don't thank me." He didn't wait for Dao Lingaling to respond and ordered her to leave. He said, "Now that your injury has healed, go back the same way. I have something to do here. I don't remember the way." Dao Lingaling lowered her head. Her voice was as thin as a mosquito's, and it was almost inaudible. "Dizzy." Chu Yun slapped his forehead. Seeing that Dao Lingaling was not pretending, the corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. He asked, "So you were so busy following me that you didn't even remember the way back? What if I came here to die? Wouldn't you be buried with me?" "What a stupid girl." Dao Lingaling's face flushed red, and she felt ashamed. In fact, she was too confident in her own strength. She thought that she could evacuate calmly with her own strength, so she followed in, but she didn't expect that this thunder roar of forbidden land was so dangerous. Just a black soul iron snake almost took her life. "Forget it, then just follow me." Chu Yun shook his head. Although Dao Lingaling had been detoxified, her injuries had not healed yet. After her martial soul was shattered, her combat power was greatly reduced within 12 hours. If she encountered the threat of monsters again, she would almost certainly die. Chu Yun would not let her find her way back by herself, and if he asked Chu Yun to send her back, it would be even more impossible. He had only one day to find someone in the thunder roar of Forbidden Land. After all the back and forth, he couldn't complete the task. So, although he was forced to do so, he could only let Dao Lingaling follow him. "I won't hold you back." Dao Lingaling's eyes quickly became bright, and then she raised a small hand and said as if to make a promise. Chu Yun rolled his eyes and turned away. Seeing this, Dao Lingaling smiled and hurriedly followed him. After being rescued by the hero by Chu Yun, although Dao Lingaling didn't say that she had much affection for Chu Yun, her curiosity was definitely getting stronger. Whether it was the terrifying hidden weapon that killed the Black Soul Iron Snake or the detoxification pill he just gave her, neither of these two things was simple. At least Dao Lingaling, one of the true disciples of Yuan sect, had never heard of them. She had followed Chu Yun for so long and saw Chu Yun reveal something, but this not only did not give Dao Lingaling an answer, but made her more confused. The current Chu Yun gave Dao Lingaling the feeling of a dark mystery, powerful and full of attraction, which made her unable to help but want to explore and want to know what the secret of this man was. This made her full of expectations and unable to stop. Chapter 17 Wooden Cart. "Big brother, your cultivation level hasn't dropped yet." "Big brother, did it hurt when your martial soul was taken away? Those people are so hateful." "Big brother, wait for me." Hearing the chirping sound behind him, Chu Yun couldn't help but roll his eyes and quickened his pace, but Dao Lingaling was still persevering and hurried to catch up. Helplessly, Chu Yun could only turn his head quickly, make a ferocious expression, and said, "Stinky girl, be quiet. If you keep chirping, I will throw you out." Dao Lingaling pursed her lips, and then she restrained herself and became quieter. However, Her pair of smart big eyes were still blinking and staring at Chu Yun's back. Those secrets were too attractive to her. After temporarily solving Zhao Lingling's episode, Chu Yun returned his attention to the right path. He did not forget that the purpose of his visit to the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land was to find the whereabouts of the missing disciple and complete the task. However, after walking so far, Chu Yun gradually lost hope. Even a true disciple like Zhao Lingling almost died when she came to the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land. Song Yun Chan was just an outer disciple in the physical realm. It was almost impossible for him to be safe and sound. Maybe Song Yun Chan was dead now. The task goal given by the system is to find the whereabouts of Song Yun Chan, but it didn't say that I must save him. This should mean that it doesn't matter whether he is dead or alive, right? Chu Yun touched his chin and thought in his heart. However, even so, if Song Yun Chan really encountered any danger, Chu Yun would not hesitate to lend a hand, depending on whether there is a chance. Big brother, look. At this time, a weak voice sounded beside him. Chu Yun turned his head and saw Zhao Lingling stretched out a lush jade finger and pointed at the bushes not far away. Chu Yun took a look and found a strange thing in the bushes. Under the dark sky, it reflected some thunder light. It was a broken sword, with only the hilt and a small part of the blade. Chu Yun stepped forward and picked it up, and found that the sword was stained with some blood. It is a standard long sword of the outer disciples of Yuan sect. It is very likely that it belongs to the missing Song Yun Chan, Zhao Lingling said as if reporting. Chu Yun nodded, then raised his eyebrows and said, "You started following me since then? You even heard their conversation clearly. You have good hearing." Zhao Lingling stuck out her tongue embarrassedly and hid aside without saying anything. "It is indeed Song Yun Chan's sword." Chu Yun looked at the sword body and found an engraving on the hilt, which had the word Yun written on it. He raised his head and looked at the ruins of Xiaolai Peak, which was close at hand, and said, "It seems that the direction is correct. Song Yun Chan did come here, but this broken sword..." Chu Yun touched his chin and found that things were not that simple. Because the broken sword has a neat and smooth cut, it doesn't look like it was broken by a monster, but more like it was cut directly by some sharp weapon, a knife or a sword. This kind of cut would be fine if it was placed outside, but it would be a big problem if it was placed in the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land. Is there anyone else in the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land? Did they attack Song Yun Chan and cut off his sword? Zhao Lingling suddenly realized. That's right. Chu Yun nodded, put away the broken sword, and walked towards the mountain. Zhao Lingling hurriedly followed, muttering, "This is not a normal situation. How could there be someone in the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land? Even if it was the elders or deacons of the sect who came to the Forbidden Land to do business, why would they attack Song Yun Chan and cut off his sword?" Chu Yun did not answer. He didn't know the answers to these questions now. Only when he got to the mountain, he might be able to find the truth. This is already the core area of the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land. It rains all day long. The mountain road has been in disrepair for a long time and is muddy. After several heavy rains, no valuable traces can be found. However, there is one thing that Chu Yun is very concerned about. That is, the stone road between the mountain roads looks very abnormal. Although it is not clean, there are very few fallen rocks and mud on it. This is a very abnormal phenomenon. If the mountain road is not cleaned frequently, it will easily be covered with mud and rainwater into a muddy road in such a continuous rainy environment. However, this stone road leading to the back mountain did not have such a situation. It looks as if someone is maintaining it. "Go along here," Chu Yun said, speeding up his pace, and Zhao Lingling hurried to catch up. The two of them walked along the stone road all the way and soon came to the back mountain. At the end of the stone road, they found a built shed. Below was a place similar to a warehouse, with many wheel marks at the door. Someone is transporting things into the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land? They even cleaned the stone road and built a shelter here? What's going on? Zhao Lingling said in surprise. In her impression, the Thunder Roar Forbidden Land is an extremely dangerous area that no one should enter. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a forbidden area for strangers. Why is there such a scene hidden inside? Someone is coming out. Chu Yun frowned and pulled Zhao Lingling to hide behind a huge rock beside the mountain road. At the same time, he stuck his head out and observed carefully. In the meantime, a very sturdy figure walked out of the warehouse. He pulled a wooden cart with a pile of corpses like a small mountain on it. All of them were corpses. Now Ling-a-ling's beautiful eyes widened. The blood disappeared from her pretty face, and her face turned pale with fear. She had never killed anyone, nor had she seen a corpse, let alone a whole truck of corpses. At this moment, she suffered a great psychological shock. On the cart, the posture of each corpse was extremely terrifying, without a trace of blood, and the eyes were pale and almost bulging out of the eye sockets, as if all the blood in the body had been drained and turned into mummies. The whole cart was piled up like a mountain. Chu Yun looked up and saw that there were at least a dozen people on it. No, the mummies were shrunk in size, so there were actually more people. The sturdy figure pushed the cart out of the warehouse. He was silent all the way and seemed lifeless, as if he himself was just a walking corpse. In this silent scene, he looked particularly eerie and terrifying. Creaking, the wooden cart was pushed out of the warehouse and went straight to a big pit next to it. The sturdy figure came to the front of the pit and lifted the wooden cart, and the mummies on it rolled into the pit. Then, the figure pushed the cart back to the warehouse. Chapter 18 Blood Slave. When the figure completely disappeared from his sight, Chu Yun fell silent. Beside him, Now Ling-a-ling was like a drowning person finally swimming to the surface, breathing with her chest rising and falling violently to calm her turbulent heart. Big brother. What is going on? Now Ling-a-ling grabbed the corner of Chu Yun's clothes. I don't know. Chu Yun shook his head, and at this moment, the system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding. Mission upgraded. Mission target. Find the whereabouts of Song Yun-chan and defeat the Blood Slave. Mission time limit. Within 3/4 of an hour. Mission reward. 1 spiritual bait. 10 ordinary baits. Chu Yun's body shook when the voice fell. Mission upgraded. He couldn't help holding his breath and looking at the dark warehouse door. The sturdy figure who was pushing the cart just now should be the so-called Blood Slave, right? Chu Yun turned his head and looked at Zhao Ling-a-ling, saying, I'll go in and take a look now. You wait here for me. If I haven't come out within 3/4 of an hour, you leave immediately and tell Master Yu Ling what happened here. Zhao Ling-a-ling was startled when she heard this, and hurriedly grabbed the corner of Chu Yun's clothes and said, This won't work. It's too dangerous for you to go in alone. Let's leave together first and ask the sect to come and deal with it. That will be too late. The mission time limit is only 3/4 of an hour. Chu Yun shook his head, thinking in his heart. He held Zhao Ling-a-ling's little hand, shook his head and said, I won't risk my life. If there is any danger, I will withdraw in time. As he said that, he flashed out of the boulder, tapped his feet lightly, and floated to the door of the warehouse. He glanced at the half-closed door and walked in. Big brother. Zhao Ling-a-ling bit her lip, watching Chu Yun enter the warehouse, and was worried. Although the sturdy figure could not see the specific cultivation level, it gave people the feeling that it was extremely dangerous. There was a terrifying aura that was not a living person. His realm was at least at the peak of the Qianjun realm, and it was even possible that he was a strong man in the Wanshai realm. And Chu Yun, at his peak, he had the Earth Demon Ape martial spirit, and his cultivation level was only the 6th level of the Qianjun realm. The difference in strength between them was extremely huge. If Chu Yun dared to fight that person head-on, the result would be a sure death. Unless. Zhao Ling-a-ling clenched her hands into fists and whispered, He is the mysterious man who opened the Tower of Babel. Inside the warehouse, a strong bloody aura floated from the depths. The entire warehouse was pitch black, but the space inside was very large. There were many cages stacked, some wooden and some iron. There were more or less some bloodstains inside. It seemed that they were used to imprison humans. And deep in the warehouse, there was a tunnel leading to a deeper area. The stronger bloody aura also came from the depths of the tunnel. Chu Yun used his body skills, and his figure floated towards the depths of the tunnel like a shadow. Not long after, he heard footsteps in front of him, gradually stepping into an empty area. Chu Yun slowed down his pace at the right time, and when he gradually could not hear the footsteps of the blood slaves, he continued to move forward, and soon came to the end of the tunnel. In front of him was an underground cave full of blood. It was very open and wider than an ordinary hall. The ground of this underground cave was very flat and paved with a special blood-colored stone. There were grooves on it, connected into special patterns, which seemed to be some kind of formation, and in the grooves, flowing was rolling blood, connected together like a long blood-colored river, bright and dazzling, shocking. Seeing this scene, Chu Yun understood what was going on, and several taboo words instantly floated to his mind. Killing people to get blood, practicing blood formations, blood pills. This is the method of the demon sect. If such a scene appeared in those demonic sects, Chu Yun would not be surprised. But here, this is Yuan sect, a righteous sect. Why in the forbidden area of this righteous sect, there is a scene of refining blood pills with the blood of living people. Dong dong dong, the heavy footsteps echoed in the empty underground cave. The owner of the footsteps was sturdy, with big shoulders and waist, blood-colored spells on his body, and a mask with nails on his head. He looked extremely fierce. He was the blood slave mentioned in the system prompt. After the blood slave put the cart in the warehouse, he walked to the depths of the underground cave. On a platform, there were several cages with several figures locked in them. However, these people have lost consciousness, but not unconscious. They sat in the cages with their eyes open, like puppets, without any emotion or reaction, just sitting there blankly. Next to the cages, there was a long table with various knives on it, which seemed to be used for blood collection. At this moment, a figure was lying on it, wearing the uniform of an outer disciple of Yuan sect. The moment Chu Yun saw him, the system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations, the mission is completed. The mission reward, 5 ordinary baits, has been issued to your system space. Please check it. Chu Yun was slightly startled after the voice fell. Then, he realized that the outer disciple lying on the table was Song Yunchan, whom he was looking for. Now that he saw him, he had found Song Yunchan's whereabouts and the mission was completed. However, Song Yunchan's current situation was obviously unusual. Like the people in the cage, they had lost consciousness and perception. It was obvious that someone had tampered with them and turned them into a walking corpse. The blood slave walked to the table, picked up a knife, aimed it at Song Yunchan's heart, and was about to stab it and started bleeding. Seeing this, Chu Yun took out a crossbow from the system space. Whoosh! The moment he pulled the trigger, a flashing arrow shot straight at the blood slave's head. The blood slave had no emotions, no emotional fluctuations. Facing this sudden attack, he turned the blade, and the bloodletting knife in his hand slashed in front of him, splitting the arrow. Immediately, without the slightest hesitation, he suddenly exerted force on his feet, and his body was like a chariot, charging towards the direction where Chu Yun was, and slashing with the knife. Swish! The blade, accompanied by a thick blood, killed Chu Yun, and the battle was about to break out. Facing this direct blow, Chu Yun put down his crossbow, walked slowly, took a step, and flashed to the side of the blood slave, and then took another step, and came to the back of the blood slave, stepping on the opponent's shadow. The blood slave missed the first knife, turned around and swept the knife, but Chu Yun's figure lowered, and he seemed to be wandering in the opponent's shadow and dodged again. Shadow stealing step. This is an extremely mysterious spiritual level technique. When you first enter the realm, you can only move behind your opponent during the battle, but after reaching the state of great perfection, you are given a special ability, which is to use the opponent's shadow as a reference to make some twists and turns. After 2 attacks failed, if it were a normal person, he would definitely start thinking about countermeasures, but this blood slave does not seem to have a strong thinking ability, or in other words, he does not have the ability to think actively. He held the knife and just chopped randomly, launching an extremely fierce attack on Chu Yun, as if he would never stop as long as Chu Yun did not die. The Wanshai realm is indeed a very strong opponent. In this realm, unless there are people at the level of elders, the disciples or even ordinary deacons will die one by one. Chu Yun thought in his heart. During this dodging process, he has summarized the characteristics of this blood slave. His Wanshai realm cultivation realm can be said to be extremely terrifying, one realm higher than Chu Yun, with violent power and fierce knife skills. He is the strongest opponent Chu Yun has ever seen. However, no matter how strong the blood slave is, its weakness is obvious. That is, it has no wisdom. Even worse than a beast, and can only act based on the most basic fighting instinct. After Chu Yun dodged several attacks, he saw an opportunity and slapped the blood slave on the back with his palm, using the eightfold strength of Qian Shan. Bang! With a loud sound. The feeling of slapping was not a real hit on a person, but more like slapping on a piece of metal, making a sound like ringing a bell. When the bell sounded, blood light appeared around the blood slave and turned into a blood-colored bell. It was his martial soul, which was automatically triggered when attacked and completely blocked Chu Yun's attack without even causing any damage. Blood-colored bronze bell. Chu Yun took a look at the opponent's martial soul, and then immediately summoned the fiery sun dragon. In an instant, the hot magma rolled, and the dragon roared fiercely, sweeping away the cold temperature of the underground space, instantly becoming hot, and the evil spirit on the blood slave was instantly suppressed. All skills have attributes. The skills of the demon sect are mainly dark, so they are naturally afraid of light and fire. Chu Yun's scorching sun dragon represents the purest yang, which is extremely restraining to the warriors of the demon sect in terms of attributes. Die! Chu Yun stepped forward, stepped on the shadow of the blood slave, and slapped it with one palm, hitting the blood slave's back again. This time, the blood-colored bronze bell did not work again. Under the suppression of scorching sun dragon, it was completely defeated with one palm, and blood spurted out of the blood slave's mouth and gushed out of the mask. Chu Yun is now only a 7th grade cultivation of the Qianjun realm. There is still a gap between his own hard power and the blood slave of the Wanshai realm, but in fact this gap is not big, because Chu Yun himself is not an ordinary Qianjun realm. He has the blessing of the Earth grade martial soul and has refined the blood of the Earth dragon. His physique is not inferior to that of the early Wanshai realm. The two of them fought for a while, and under Chu Yun's magical shadow-stealing step, the blood slave gradually collapsed. Dozens of solid attacks hit him, and he quickly lost his resistance. Bang! With the last blow, Chu Yun slapped the blood slave on the back of his head. With one slap, the blood slave's body instantly fell straight down and hit the ground, without any life. Chapter 19 Investigation. This was undoubtedly a difficult tremor. When the blood slave fell to the ground, Chu Yun could not help but let out a long breath. Ding! Congratulations, the mission is completed. The mission reward, 1 spiritual bait, 10 ordinary baits, has been distributed to your system space. Please check it. The system prompt sounded, and Chu Yun breathed a sigh of relief. He looked around and looked at the dirty, sinful, and bloody scene. He was silent for a while. When he was about to do something, he found a slight sound of footsteps coming from the entrance. "Why did you come down?" Chu Yun asked. As soon as the voice fell, at the entrance of the tunnel, Dao Lingaling nervously poked her head inside. After seeing Chu Yun and the fallen blood slave, her eyes were suddenly filled with surprise, and she hurriedly followed in. "Great, you won," Dao Lingaling said happily. Chu Yun frowned, looked at Dao Lingaling, and said, "Didn't I tell you to wait outside? If I can't defeat the blood slave, wouldn't you be throwing your life away by coming in like this?" Dao Lingaling was scolded and felt a little aggrieved, but she still explained clearly, "I've been thinking about it for a long time outside. In my current state, it will be difficult for me to get out of the thunder roar of Forbidden Land if I leave alone. Why don't I come and help you? If we two are together, maybe we will have a better chance of winning. What if I am the last straw that breaks the camel's back?" Chu Yun's expression moved when he heard this, but he couldn't keep a straight face anymore. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it. Let's not talk about this." Dao Lingaling smiled, and her expression became lively again. She looked around and was soon shocked by the environment in the underground cave. She was dumbfounded and said, This is the blood training formation of the demon sect?" "That's right." Chu Yun nodded. He squatted down, reached out and turned the blood slave's body on the ground to the front, untied the mask on the blood slave's head, and saw a hideous face. That face could no longer be called a face. The whole face was very distorted and covered with complex scars. There was not an inch of skin intact. Obviously, the mastermind behind this did not want people to recognize the identity of this blood slave, so he destroyed his face. "Who is this blood slave?" Dao Lingaling asked. "It's not important. What's important is his mastermind behind the scenes." Chu Yun shook his head and said, Blood slaves are puppets controlled by the magic sect's skills. They have no thoughts or emotions and can only act according to the orders of the controller. They can no longer be called human beings. They are just a simple tool used to refine blood pills. The mountain road leading to the back mountain of the Xiuli Peak ruins has always been maintained by someone. This means that every once in a while, someone will regularly transport some living people from the outside world to the blood training formation in the Liu Forbidden Land for the blood slaves to refine blood pills. To be able to do this, the status of the mastermind behind the scenes in Yuan sect must be extraordinary. Maybe he is a big shot at the level of a peak master. Zhao Lingaling couldn't help shuddering when she heard this. This kind of thing was too exciting for her. She felt that just knowing this matter was very dangerous. Then these people. Zhao Lingaling looked at Song Yun Chang on the table and the figures trapped in the cage, and she hesitated, because the reactions of these people were so strange. After Chu Yun killed the blood slave, these people did not react at all. They did not feel happy about being rescued, nor were they afraid or panicked. They were like hollow wood, without any reaction. Chu Yun looked at those people and could not help but sighed. He said, "They have been processed, just like the cut ingredients. Although they have not been served yet, they are actually dead." In order to prevent the resentment of the killed people from affecting their minds, the demon sect will process them in advance if conditions permit, and destroy the souls of the living people. In this way, these people will become blood bags without thoughts. They seem to be breathing, but they are actually dead. Chu Yun knew this because he had read the sect files about the demon sect. About 12 years ago, the 4 major sects in the Linghai area once joined forces to encircle and suppress the rampant Demon Heart sect at that time, captured the Demon Heart sect's headquarters, killed a large number of demon masters, and exchanged for more than 10 years of peace. After the victory, Yuan sect also brought back a lot of files about magic warriors from the Demon Heart sect's main hall and placed them in the library for reading. Of course, there are no magic cultivation methods in it, only some introductions to the magic warriors' systems, as well as the various fields they are involved in, their characteristics and weaknesses. The purpose is to let the disciples know how to deal with the magic sect's warriors after reading them. Chu Yun once read these books and wanted to eliminate the devil and defend the way, and create merits, but he never had the chance. Zhao Lingaling couldn't help but clench her fists when she heard this. She didn't know how many people had to be killed to accumulate such a large pool of blood. This was simply unbearable. We should immediately make the matter public. The magic sect cultivators have not disappeared. Not only that, they have also sneaked into our Yuan sect and refined blood pills in this thunder forbidden area. Zhao Lingaling was shaking with anger and said loudly, "No." Chu Yun shook his head and rejected Zhao Lingaling's proposal. Seeing Zhao Lingaling looking at him with puzzled eyes, Chu Yun explained lightly, "We don't know who is the mastermind behind the scenes, but the one who can do this must be a real powerful figure. If we only tell the sect that there is such a spy from the demon sect, but cannot point out who this person is, everyone in the Yuan sect will be in danger. Once the chain of suspicion is generated, it will not be stopped. By then, there will be chaos in the Yuan sect, and the spy from the demon sect will have the opportunity to fish in troubled waters and hide himself completely." Zhao Lingaling thought about it carefully and realized that this was indeed the case. She couldn't help feeling a little ashamed of her impulsive thoughts, and then asked softly, "Then what should we do? Ask the sect master for help?" Chu Yun still shook his head and said, "No, at this time, we can't ask anyone, because those who deserve our help, everyone may be the mastermind. Before we determine the identity of the mastermind, we can't act rashly. We must investigate quietly first." Chu Yun took a look at the progress of the blood draining formation and said, "According to the scale of this formation, it will take at least a month to refine a blood pill. The frequency of the mastermind sending people to the forbidden area regularly should also be about a month. Song Yun Chan ran into them 2 days ago, which means that the mastermind will not come to the Thunder Roar forbidden area again in the short term. We have nearly a month to investigate." Chapter 20, Aftermath. Zhao Lingaling nodded, and then quickly realized a clear word in Chu Yun's words. "We?" "That's right." Chu Yun nodded, looked at Zhao Lingaling with a smile, and said, This investigation task is best completed by you. Huh? Zhao Lingaling was obviously a little confused, feeling that I had no virtue or ability. You are the true disciple of Yuxiu Peak, and your status is very high, which makes it convenient for you to investigate some things. As for me, I am just a martial arts waste whose martial soul has been taken away. Doing such things will easily attract attention, so this investigation task can only be handed over to you. How about it? Is it okay? Chu Yun looked at Zhao Lingaling with a smile, as if he was luring someone to join a pirate ship. Zhao Lingaling was a little embarrassed and said, "It's okay. But I don't know where to start." "This is easy." Chu Yun pointed to the body of the blood slave on the ground and said, "When I fought with this blood slave just now, I saw his moves clearly. The martial arts he used are exactly from Yuan sect. If things go as expected, this blood slave must have been a member of Yuan sect, and his martial soul is a 4th grade blood-colored bronze bell. There should not be many such martial souls in Yuan sect. If we can find the identity of this blood slave, perhaps we can find the mastermind behind the scenes. Find a disciple of Yuan sect who possesses a 4th grade martial soul, the blood-colored bronze bell. This is not too difficult. As long as the disciples have come to Yuxiu Peak for treatment, they will leave records with their martial souls marked on them. I will go back and look through the records of previous years and I should be able to find it." Zhao Lingaling breathed a sigh of relief when she heard this. This investigation mission was safer than she had imagined, and it was also within her ability. "Then, what should we do here?" Zhao Lingaling hesitated for a moment, looking at the blood training arrays around her. The evil end made her unable to bear to look directly at it. "Don't worry about it, I'll handle it." Chu Yun shook his head and said, "I'll send you away now." Zhao Lingaling could only nod her head after hearing this. Looking at the living dead including Song Yunchan, she felt very sorry. If it was just a common injury, she would take these people back to Yuxiu Peak and they might be saved, but their souls had been wiped out and they could not be saved no matter what. Afterwards, Chu Yun took Zhao Lingaling out of the thunder roar of Forbidden Land and sent them out safely. Seeing Zhao Lingaling return to Yuxiu Peak, Chu Yun turned back and went to the underground cave to start dealing with the scene. To say it was dealing with it was actually just moving the bodies. The body of the blood slave and several living dead including Song Yunchan could all be used as evidence. After Chu Yun took them out of the underground cave, he found a safer place in the ruins of Xiuli Peak and placed them there. After all this, Chu Yun left and returned to the Oak Infinite Night. This day's mission can be said to be extremely special. Chu Yun first came into contact with the dark side of this world and the cruel and brutal methods of the demon sect. The deeper the understanding, the stronger the desire to improve one's own strength, because only by constantly getting stronger can one protect oneself in this dangerous world and fight for the life one wants. Start fishing. Coming to the stream, Chu Yun sat on the fishing platform, took out the fishing rod, and took out the spiritual bait. This is the second spiritual bait he has obtained. He is very much looking forward to what kind of surprise it can give him. After taking a deep breath, Chu Yun threw the fishing rod and started fishing. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 80 years of martial arts enlightenment. As the voice fell, a ball of light floated into Chu Yun's body, shocking Chu Yun's body. This second spiritual bait directly rewarded Chu Yun with 80 years of martial arts enlightenment, which is equivalent to 1 spiritual fishing, which is equivalent to 8 times of ordinary bait fishing. Gooey, a full 80 years of martial arts enlightenment. The 10 years of martial arts enlightenment I caught before allowed me to cultivate the 1,000 mountains 8-fold strength to the state of great perfection. Now another 80 years have passed. But how can I have so many spiritual martial arts to practice? Chu Yun smiled bitterly. As the eldest senior brother of Yuan sect, Chu Yun has learned a total of 4 spiritual martial arts. In addition to the very practical 1,000 mountains 8-fold strength, there is also a body technique, a boxing technique and a sword technique. Among them, Chu Yun would not consider the body technique, because compared with the spiritual body technique snatching shadow step that he has mastered to the state of great perfection, the effect of this body technique is much weaker, and the upper limit is also low. The effects of the 2 body techniques are somewhat overlapping, and it is a waste to use them. Then let's cultivate that boxing technique and 1 sword technique first. and directly use the martial arts enlightenment to push them all to the state of great perfection. Chu Yun thought to himself, that fist technique, called Wind and Fire Burst Fist, is quite compatible with Chu Yun's martial soul Fiery Sun Dragon, and it is worthwhile to max it out. And that sword technique, called Ching Sword Technique, is the signature sword technique of Yuan sect, and its power is also quite good. After maxing it out, it can just make up for Chu Yun's weakness in swordsmanship. In one night, Chu Yun comprehended 2 martial arts and comprehended them all to the state of great perfection, which took a total of 19 years of enlightenment. Among them, Wind and Fire Burst Fist is easier to comprehend because it is compatible with Chu Yun's current attributes, so it only took 6 years of martial arts enlightenment. As for the Ching Sword Technique, because its attributes are not compatible, and Chu Yun himself rarely practices swordsmanship, it took a full 13 years of martial arts enlightenment to cultivate it to the state of great perfection, which is more than twice that of Wind and Fire Burst Fist. Normal warriors practice martial arts in this way. The more suitable the martial arts are, the faster they practice. On the contrary, they will practice very slowly. However, no matter how fast they practice, it will take several years to practice a spiritual martial art to the state of great perfection. In the current Yuan sect, there is not a single disciple who can master a spiritual martial art to the state of great perfection. The best is to practice to the state of great perfection, which is already a rare genius. And Chu Yun, now he has mastered 4 spiritual martial arts of the state of great perfection. The gap between the 2 sides can be described as a world of difference. In fact, I still have more than 60 years of martial arts enlightenment that I have not used. It seems that I have to find a way to find some new martial arts to learn next. As long as they are useful spiritual products, it will be fine. If I can get Earth grade ones, it will be even better. Chu Yun thought to himself. Then, Chu Yun took out the remaining dozen ordinary baits and started a new round of fishing. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 soul-breaking crossbow arrows. Ordinary item. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a bottle of Yangtze Sago. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 3 Gale talismans. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the ordinary martial art Eagle Eye, Great Perfection Realm. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a bottle of corpse dissolving powder. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained the martial arts experience of the ordinary martial art Crescent Sword Technique, Great Perfection Realm. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained a Black Soul Jade. Ding! Congratulations, you have obtained 10 Lion Yun Grass Spirit Seeds. After more than a dozen times of fishing, Chu Yun had a rich harvest. After the last bait was used up, he washed up and fell asleep contentedly. Chapter 21 Wu Gong. The next day, early in the morning, as usual, Chu Yun got up early, left Zioqingfeng, and wandered around the sect. Although what happened yesterday had a great impact on Chu Yun, life still had to go on as usual. The demon sect cultivator hiding in Yuan sect was dangerous, but it was only a latent danger and might not erupt in a short time, so there was no need to worry too much. As long as Ling found out who the owner of the 4th grade martial soul blood-colored bronze bell was, Chu Yun felt that he would be able to find the mastermind behind this incident. Chenshai, outside the library. Ding! Task triggered. Task content: clean the courtyard of the library. Task time limit: within half an hour. Task reward: 3 ordinary baits. Another familiar voice sounded. Chu Yun curled his lips, and then walked into the library. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Zhu Bo in a gray coat, holding a broom and slowly sweeping the floor. He saw Chu Yun coming in, but he didn't react, just nodded. It seems that Zhu Bo has also gotten used to Chu Yun's presence. Good morning, Zhu Bo. You look very energetic today. Chu Yun greeted him with a smile. Stinky boy. Zhu Bo shook his head, facing Chu Yun's careless look. He really didn't know what to say. Then, Chu Yun picked up the broom and started sweeping the floor with Zhu Bo. The two of them had a tacit understanding of each other and soon cleaned up the fallen leaves and debris in the yard. After cleaning, Chu Yun did not rush to leave, but looked at the pagoda in the center of the yard and said to Zhu Bo, "I'll go in and take a look and take a stroll." Zhu Bo nodded. As the eldest brother of the sect, Chu Yun had the right to enter and exit the library at will without the consent of anyone. Chu Yun walked into the library, climbed up the stairs all the way, and came directly to the 4th floor of the library, which is also the highest floor of the library. The 1st floor of the library is filled with all kinds of books, including poems, travel notes, and some books about cultivation. The 2nd and 3rd floors are filled with ordinary martial arts and techniques. After hundreds of years of collection by Yuan sect, the number is very terrifying. As for the 4th floor, it is filled with spiritual techniques and martial arts. Although there are not many, there are dozens of them in total, which are placed here for the elite disciples of Yuan sect to read at will. However, although there are many martial arts techniques here, it is not enough to read as many as you want, because a person's energy is limited, and it takes time and understanding to practice a technique or martial arts. If a spiritual technique is not practiced to the entry level, then its effect may not even be as good as a small ordinary technique. You can't chew too much if you are greedy. Chu Yun was the same before. After he gained the right to enter the 4th floor, he selected 4 martial arts and one technique that he thought was most suitable for him from dozens of techniques, and practiced them exclusively. In fact, choosing 4 techniques was already considered too many. But Chu Yun is now in a very different situation. Simply put, he now has more than enough comprehension. Conservatively speaking, he has no pressure at all to practice 5 more spiritual martial arts or techniques to perfection. In this case, he naturally has to come to this library and make a careful selection. After Chu Yun came to the 4th floor, he saw that there was no one around, so he patiently read through them one by one, whether it was a technique or a martial art, and read them carefully. After half an hour, Chu Yun selected 3 martial arts, 1 fierce wind leg technique, 1 soul-stealing flying needle, and 1 diamond body protection, which can make up for some of Chu Yun's current shortcomings. After choosing the technique, Chu Yun immediately began to comprehend it, using his remaining comprehension of more than 60 years to forcefully tackle these 3 tough problems. In the end, Chu Yun consumed 37 years of martial arts comprehension, and cultivated all 3 martial arts to the state of great perfection. And then he stood up and left. Although Chu Yun still had about 30 years of martial arts comprehension left, he couldn't continue to use it, because the remaining martial arts techniques here can't be said to be completely useless, but in fact, the effect is somewhat small. Using comprehension on them can only bring a very small improvement, which is too disadvantageous, and Chu Yun is also afraid that he will encounter better martial arts in the future, but he has no comprehension to use. Walking out of the pagoda of the library, the sun has set, and there are not many people in the yard. Chu Yun glanced around and saw Zhu Bo's figure, who was practicing boxing slowly in front of his own yard. Chu Yun smiled, thinking about going over to get a cup of tea to quench his thirst, so he walked over. "Did you go to comprehend martial arts?" Zhu Bo asked slowly while practicing boxing and looking at Chu Yun. "Just looking around," Chu Yun said, and picked up the teacup on the table and poured himself a cup of tea. He drank it comfortably, looking at the falling leaves in the library and the afterglow of the setting sun shining on the earth. The scenery was also magnificent. Zhu Bo glanced at Chu Yun, and then continued to practice boxing. Chu Yun was about to get up and say goodbye, but when he looked at Zhu Bo, he was stunned for a moment, and a thoughtful look appeared on his face. "Uncle Zhu, what you are practicing is Yuan Yang Gong?" No, it's a bit like Shanghe Gong." Chu Yun frowned, carefully watched Uncle Zhu's movements, and slapped his thigh again. "Wait a minute, how come it becomes Han Bing Gong again?" "Uncle Zhu, what kind of martial arts are you practicing?" He. Uncle Zhu smiled faintly and said, "You have a good eye, little guy. There are people coming and going in this library, but no one can see the tricks in my martial arts. You are the only one." Chu Yun humbly asked for advice and asked, "I see that your martial arts are ever-changing, as if they are all-inclusive. Not only are there shadows of ordinary martial arts, but there are also the foundations of spiritual martial arts." "What kind of martial arts is this?" "I created it myself," Uncle Zhu replied. Self-created? Chu Yun was surprised. Although self-created martial arts are not uncommon, Uncle Zoo's martial arts is obviously extraordinary. It is definitely not an ordinary martial arts. Who knows, it may be a martial arts above spiritual grade. And how terrifying would a martial artist who could create his own spiritual grade martial arts attainment be? This Zubo was just an unknown janitor, but he actually had such a skill. Zubo, what is the name of this martial arts you created? What grade is it? Ordinary or spiritual? Chu Yun asked hurriedly. I don't know what grade it is. Zubo shook his head and said, you can say it's ordinary, or it can be said to be spiritual. Chu Yun's head was full of question marks. How could there be such a saying? Over the past few decades, I have read all kinds of martial arts in the library. When I have nothing to do, I go to find the commonalities among these martial arts. Gradually, I have developed a special martial arts that can use myself as a platform to operate all the martial arts. I call it Wujigong. Zubo said word by word. Wujigong. Can use myself as a platform to operate all the martial arts. Chu Yun took a breath of cold air, because this was simply too amazing. And it was not an exaggeration to call it earth-shaking. As we all know, skills in martial arts are two completely different things. A warrior can learn a variety of martial arts and use them all in battle, which is no problem. However, skills are different. Every skill, no matter what grade, can bring a talent to the warrior after learning it. For example, the spiritual skill Qinggong that Chu Yun now masters is the classic skill of Yuan sect. After learning it, it can allow the warrior's spiritual power to circulate back and forth and strengthen recovery. There are also some skills, such as Yuan Yanggong, which can allow one's own spiritual power to be accompanied by a hot yang fire when it is running, causing special damage to the enemy. However, no matter Qinggong or Yuan Yanggong, even if both skills are learned, only one of them can be used at the same time, because, after all, skills are a way to circulate the spiritual power of the meridians, and a person has only one set of meridians. After running one skill, how can you run other skills? Now, Zubo said that his self-created Wujigong can run multiple exercises at the same time. Doesn't this mean that as long as you learn a technique, you can get one more talent? If it can really achieve such an effect, it would be too terrifying, right? It's simply horrifying. Don't believe it? Zubo smiled faintly, and seeing Chu Yun's face full of disbelief, he stretched out his hand and pushed, and two spiritual powers gushed out from his palm, one full of ice energy and the other full of yang fire energy. This is not a martial art like the 9 heavens of ice and fire, but pure spiritual power pushed out by the exercises. One is the Yuan Yang Gong and the other is the Ice Gong. It can actually accommodate the talents of two exercises at the same time, and they are two talents with completely opposite attributes. This is incredible. Chu Yun was shocked, looked at Zubo, and said, Zubo, can you teach me? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Lingzi Mountain. If I don't teach you, will you come here every day to steal my work? Zubo asked unhappily. How can that be possible? Chu Yun smiled shyly, and his smile was very innocent. Zubo shook his head, took out a book from his arms, and threw it on the table. Chu Yun's eyes lit up, and he hurried forward, picked up the book, and flipped through it. Seeing that the ink on it was not dry, it was obviously just written. As soon as it was opened, a breath of Taoism came to his face. This book of martial arts is not something that can be written casually. Every book of martial arts that can be written is extremely precious, because it has two very demanding requirements. First, the writer needs to have mastered the realm of great perfection in this martial arts. If it is just an entry, or a small success or a great success, it is impossible to write it out completely. The second, and most important, point is that during the writing process, the writer needs to divide a part of his spirituality and inject it into the book of the technique. Only in this way can other warriors understand the profound meaning behind the words when reading the book. And this spirituality is not divided casually. The first time is fine and will not damage the foundation, but if it is written a second time, it will affect the writer's mastery of this technique and it will be incomplete. In other words, a person who has cultivated a certain technique to the state of great perfection is only allowed to write a book twice. The first book can be written without side effects, but the second book, once written, will damage the writer's foundation, make his spirituality incomplete, fall from the state of great perfection, and never recover, and will never be able to write a third book. Zhu Bo's Wu Jigong was obviously just written. If it was the first book, it would be fine. If it was the second book, Zhu Bo's mastery of Wu Jigong would fall from the state of great perfection, and he would never be able to recover to great perfection in his lifetime. Uncle Zhu, this. Chu Yun looked at it and couldn't help but look up and look at Uncle Zhu. Don't think too much, this is the first one. Uncle Zhu snorted twice and said, except for a stubborn fool like you, who else would care about a martial arts created by a janitor? Even if I want to write it for others, no one would care. He paused and said, Wu Jigong itself has no power, it is just a platform. After you learn it, you still need to learn other martial arts. Every time you learn a martial arts, your Wu Jigong will increase its power. If you can learn all the martial arts in the world, Wu Jigong will be the strongest martial arts in the world. Chu Yun was deeply shocked when he heard this. He took a deep breath, stepped forward, and bowed to Uncle Zhu as a disciple. Zhu Bo stopped practicing, stood there, and calmly accepted Chu Yun's gift. Then he turned his head and snorted, get out of here if you take the skills. Don't disturb my peace. He. Chu Yun smiled and said, I'll come again tomorrow. Zhu Bo turned around and walked into the house, saying, the skills depend on understanding, and time and place are also important. I was next to Lingzi Mountain when I realized the secret of Wu Jigong and created it. If you are interested, you can go to Lingzi Mountain to comprehend it. Chu Yun was thoughtful after he finished speaking. Lingzi Mountain, in Yuan sect, there are many spiritual places for cultivation, and Lingzi Mountain is one of them. If there is anything unusual about this mountain, it is that the spiritual energy is strong, and there are natural Tao patterns on the mountain wall. The so-called Tao patterns refer to those patterns in the natural world that are close to the martial arts. The existence of some patterns itself can attract spiritual energy and produce extraordinary effects. Among the martial arts branches, there is a type of art that specializes in talismans. The talismans themselves are carved on paper to draw the Tao pattern, thereby attracting the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. On the mountain wall of Lingzi Mountain, there is an extremely huge Tao pattern. I don't know if it is naturally formed, but it is definitely more than 10,000 years old. In the early days, Lingzi Mountain was not called this name, but Lingbai Mountain. It was not until a few decades ago that a strong man from Yuan sect learned a heavenly level finger technique from the Tao pattern of Lingbai Mountain and changed its name to Lingzi Mountain. At noon, Chu Yun came to the outside of Lingzi Mountain. From a distance, there was an oval-shaped Tao pattern on the mountain wall, as big as a 10-story palace. The overall pattern was a circle around a circle. Each pattern could be said to be a part of the Tao pattern, or a separate Tao pattern. Lingzi Mountain, this overall Tao pattern looks like a giant's fingerprint. Chu Yun had this strange idea in his mind, but soon shook his head. How is this possible? If the Tao pattern on Lingzi Mountain is really a person's fingerprint, how big will that person's body be? One finger island a mountain, so the whole person must be taller than the sky? Chu Yun put away his unrealistic guesses and walked to the foot of Lingzi Mountain. There were people coming and going on the mountain road, and many disciples came here every day to observe the Tao pattern. Chu Yun, why are you here? In front of the palace gate at the foot of the mountain road, a figure came out with great surprise and greeted Chu Yun. Brother Qin, long time no see. Chu Yun smiled and greeted him. The person in front of him was named Qin Lu, a deacon of Mingzhou Peak of Yuan sect, who was in charge of Lingzi Mountain. Because he had trained with Zhu Jinsong when he was still a disciple many years ago and was saved by Zhu Jinsong, he was very close to the disciples on Zhuqin Peak. Deacon Qin Lu stepped forward quickly and took a look at Chu Yun. He scanned him from head to toe and saw that Chu Yun was full of energy and spirit, not at all like the crazy rumors outside. He immediately breathed a sigh of relief and showed a happy expression. He patted Chu Yun on the shoulder and said, "We really haven't seen each other for a long time. Come on, follow me in, let's have a couple of drinks. Haha, no, I came to Lingzi Mountain to do something. Chu Yun smiled and shook his head, saying, please trouble senior brother Qin to take me to the practice room. I want to observe and comprehend the Tao pattern. Comprehend the Tao pattern? Deacon Qinlu was startled when he heard this, and a trace of embarrassment appeared on his face. He looked at Chu Yun, hesitant to speak, as if he didn't know how to start. Seeing this, Chu Yun's expression changed, but he still smiled and asked, Brother Qin, if you have anything to say, just say it directly. We are all family, so what is there to hide? Alas, Deacon Qinlu sighed, smiled bitterly, and said, Brother, to be honest, someone is already using your practice room. Chapter 23, Disaster Prevention. Someone is using it? Chu Yun muttered, and paused for a moment in a calm tone. In Yuan sect, disciples of different levels can experience different treatment and resource allocation. For example, Lingzi Mountain has tens of thousands of Tao patterns on the mountain wall. Ordinary disciples can stand at the foot of the mountain and watch at will, but there is also a unique training room inside Lingzi Mountain. This training room has a spirit-gathering formation and a crystal ball-like magic weapon. You can watch every Tao pattern on the mountain wall at close range, and it is very convenient to see the whole picture. But there are very few such training rooms, and only the great elders of each peak and the senior brothers of the sect can use them. Chu Yun has such a training room, but now Qinlu tells him that someone is already using that training room. It's like this. Deacon Qinlu still smiled bitterly and said, since that incident, the true disciples of each peak in Yuan sect have been competing. In the end, Dao Xiaoshan, the true disciple of Qin Peak, defeated the true disciples of the other peaks and has been designated as the next senior brother of the sect. He is just waiting for the sect competition in half a month to officially take over your position, and the exclusive training room of this senior brother will also. At this point, Deacon Qinlu sighed again and couldn't bear to say anything more. That incident he mentioned was naturally the incident of Chu Yun's martial soul being taken away. Since that day, everyone in Yuan sect knew that Chu Yun, the senior brother, was already dead in name only. After the next sect competition, his tenure as senior brother would end. My identity as the senior brother has not been taken back yet, and they can't wait so soon? Chu Yun sighed helplessly. Qinlu couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard this. He knew that Chu Yun must be feeling bad now. The feeling of watching his position being taken away by others but being helpless would definitely make Chu Yun, a former genius, sad. He was thinking about how to comfort Chu Yun, but he saw that Chu Yun had walked straight towards the Lingzi Mountain training room. Qinlu was startled when he saw this, and then hurriedly followed. Brother, where are you going? Qinlu asked hurriedly. Chu Yun replied as a matter of course I went to the training room. My identity as the senior brother has not been taken back, and the right to use the training room is still mine. That's true, but I'm afraid it's not a good idea. Qinlu looked at Chu Yun in embarrassment and said, anyway, you will be leaving your post in half a month, so why bother to compete with them for this moment? You will still have to live in the Yuan sect in the future. If you offend those people, it will be bad for you. Brother, listen to my advice, forget it. He said this out of consideration for Chu Yun. He didn't want Chu Yun to offend the people of Qin Peak, so as not to attract Zhao Xiaoshan's targeted suppression in the future. However, Chu Yun did not stop, and went directly to the door of the training room, looked at Qinlu, and said, Senior brother Qin, help me open the door. Brother, why bother? Qinlu shook his head. Chu Yun smiled faintly and said, I have my own plans. Please ask senior brother Qin to open the door for me. Qinlu heard this and could not persuade him anymore. He could only sigh and take out a crystal key, stick it on the door of the practice room, and open the door. At this moment, in the practice room, a young man in a black robe was sitting cross-legged on the ground, comprehending the Tao patterns displayed in the crystal ball. He was suddenly disturbed and frowned, very unhappy. Who comes here to disturb my practice? He turned his head and saw the face of the person who came. He was stunned for a moment, and a strange look appeared on his face, as if he did not expect Chu Yun to come here. Chu Yun also looked at the young man in black and said, Who are you? He had seen Zhao Xiaoshan, the true disciple of Qi Yun, but the person in front of him was not one of them, so he asked this question. Kunpik Inner Sect Disciple, Zhu Wuhai, greets senior brother Chu. Zhu Wuhai bowed his hands and changed his address to Chu Yun from senior brother to senior brother Chu, because in the eyes of Kunpik disciples, the senior brother of Yuan sect is no longer Chu Yun, but Zhao Shaoshan. Chu Yun naturally understood the meaning of Zhu Wuhai calling him senior brother Chu, but he didn't care. He said, "I need this practice room, you can go out." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Wuhai's expression suddenly became strange. He touched his chin, looked Chu Yun up and down, and said with a bit of ridicule, "Senior brother Chu, do you still need this practice room now? If you really want to observe the Tao pattern, why don't you go down the mountain to take a look? It's a waste of resources to occupy the toilet without doing shit." Zhu Wuhai. Before Chu Yun could speak, Deacon Kinlu's face was cold and he shouted angrily. He pointed at Zhu Wuhai and said sternly, "Watch your identity and words. The eldest brother of Yuan sect is still Chu Yun, and the right to use the Lingzi Mountain training room is also his. If he wants you to go out, you should get out obediently. Don't force me to enforce the sect rules to drive you away." As he spoke, Deacon Kinlu, with his cultivation and spiritual energy, completely locked onto Zhu Wuhai in this small training room, with a fierce look in his eyes. Zhu Wuhai's face changed. He was oppressed by Deacon Kinlu's momentum, and his breathing was a little heavy for a while. Deacon Kinlu's cultivation was much stronger than his. If the two of them fought, he would definitely not be Deacon Kinlu's opponent. At this moment, Zhu Wuhai also knew very well that if he dared to say something mocking Chu Yun again, Deacon Kinlu would immediately beat him up and throw him out, and he would be embarrassed. So, he snorted coldly, looked at Deacon Kinlu and Chu Yun deeply, turned around and left the training room without saying a word. After Zhu Wuhai left, Chu Yun glanced at Deacon Kinlu, and a trace of warmth emerged in his heart. He shook his head and said, "Brother Qin, you don't have to be like this." Zhu Wuhai had just spoken rudely to Chu Yun. As long as Chu Yun responded, the object of the conflict would fall on Chu Yun, so Deacon Kinlu took the initiative to take it over. With his words just now, even if Zhu Wuhai held a grudge, he would not hold a grudge against Chu Yun, but would hold a grudge against Kinlu. In other words, Deacon Kinlu's actions helped Chu Yun block the pressure from Chu Yun. If people from Chu Yun came to cause trouble in the future, they would not come to Chu Yun, but would only go to Kinlu. He was helping Chu Yun to ward off disaster. "Let's not talk about this." Deacon Kinlu shook his head, smiled, and said, "Since you want to use this practice room, then use it. I won't bother you." With that, Deacon Kinlu also turned around and left, leaving Chu Yun alone in this practice room. Chapter 24 Shaoshan. After Kinlu left, Chu Yun thought for a moment and decided to wait and see what would happen. He came to the center of the practice room, looked at the crystal ball, and the spiritual power attached to it, and began to comprehend and observe the various Tao patterns on the mountain wall. At the same time, he took out the original copy of Wu Jigong that Zhu Bo gave him, and read and comprehended it. Ding! It is detected that you have unused martial arts enlightenment, 31 years. Excuse me, do you need to use it? Chu Yun nodded. Then, while quickly consuming his enlightenment, he quickly comprehended Wu Jigong and comprehended Tao patterns. It must be said that Zhu Bo's advice is very effective. Chu Yun looked at the Tao patterns and read Wu Jigong at the same time. He felt that the progress of practice was very fast, and he also had many different insights. Wu Jigong, as a platform, can be compatible with all other types of exercises. The 8 meridians in the body. Each meridian can be used as a platform for the operation of an exercise, so at most, 8 different exercises can be operated at the same time. But is this the limit? Chu Yun thought to himself. Normal warriors need to use a whole set of meridians to operate a set of exercises. Wu Jigong only needs 1 meridian to operate a set of exercises. The human body has 8 meridians, so it can operate up to 8 exercises at the same time. This is a great improvement, and it is not an exaggeration to call it subversive. But, is operating 8 kinds of exercises at the same time the limit? According to this idea, Can two random meridians be combined to operate a new exercise? If two combinations are possible, wouldn't that add 4 more? Then what about 3-3? What about 3-4? This is like counting line segments. If the 8 meridians are regarded as 8 line segments, then any combination of them can evolve into dozens of combinations. In this way, Wujigong can also operate dozens of exercises at the same time. This is simply too scary to think about. However, so far, Chu Yun's idea is just empty talk. If he wants to put it into practice, he needs to comprehend it himself and make some improvements to Wujigong. So Chu Yun focused all his attention on the Tao pattern on the mountain wall, hoping to gain understanding and inspiration from it. In the past, the junior uncle of Yuan sect learned the heavenly martial art Lingxi Yizi from Lingxi Mountain. Later, the nameless monk Zhu Bo learned Wujigong from Lingxi Mountain. Chu Yun felt that if he wanted to learn something, it should be possible. Even if he was not as amazing as the first two, he at least had 30 years of enlightenment, which was equivalent to 30 years of comprehending the Tao pattern. If this still didn't work, Chu Yun might as well hit his head and die. On the other side, at the foot of Lingxi Mountain, Zhu Wuhai went and came back, but this time, he didn't come alone. Let Qin Lu come out. A figure in white came to the foot of Lingxi Mountain and said lightly while looking at several busy errand boys. After the voice fell, the errand boys looked at each other, knowing that these people were not friendly, so they dropped their brooms and ran back to report to Qin Lu. Not long after, Deacon Qin Lu walked out of the temple as if nothing had happened, glanced at the crowd outside, swept his eyes over Zhu Wuhai, and then looked at the white-clothed man at the head. Isn't this junior brother Zhao Xiaoshan, the true disciple of Chu Yun? Deacon Qin Lu scratched his ears and said, "Why are you here to find me? Don't pretend." Zhu Wuhai stepped forward. Previously in the training room, he was forced by the situation and didn't dare to be too tough, but now with Zhao Xiaoshan's support, he straightened his back and spoke louder, saying, "You have to give us an explanation for what happened today." The faint smile on Qin Lu's face gradually disappeared. He looked at Zhu Wuhai and said, "What explanation do you want? Why should I explain anything to you? You." Zhu Wuhai's face sank, knowing that Qin Lu said this. She didn't take him seriously at all. He was angry and was about to explode immediately. However, his shoulder was gently pressed by a hand. "Don't get too excited. We are here to reason." Zhao Xiaoshan glanced at Zhu Wuhai. Although his tone was calm, many Qin Peak disciples were terrified as soon as he spoke. Zhu Wuhai's face turned pale, and the anger in his heart disappeared in an instant. He dared not do anything out of line. Obviously, in Qin Peak, Zhao Xiaoshan, the true disciple, had a great reputation, and ordinary disciples were even very afraid of him. "Deacon Qin, I won't play dumb with you." Zhao Xiaoshan looked at Qin Lu calmly and said, "Who is the #1 disciple in Yuan sect now? I don't need to tell you, you know very well in your heart that the position of the eldest senior brother is already mine, including Lingxi Mountain. All the privileges of the eldest senior brother belong to me. Today, you stood up for Chu Yun and cut my face. As the saying goes, a new official starts with 3 fires. If I don't show any expression, won't the disciples look down on me, the new eldest senior brother?" Qin Lu's expression did not change, and he said, "Junior brother Zhao, I am the deacon of the sect, so I naturally have to act according to the sect's rules. Now the sect competition hasn't started yet, and Chu Yun's year as the eldest senior brother has not ended. No matter how anxious you are, you have to wait until after the sect competition, right? According to the sect rules, every year during the sect competition, a senior brother will be selected. During this year, he can enjoy exclusive privileges. Only the strongest among the disciples can serve. Although it is approaching the end of the year, this year has not ended after all. Chu Yun is still the senior brother of Yuan sect in name." Qin Lu grasped this point and was indeed reasonable, but she seemed a little too ignorant and did not give face to Zhao Xiaoshan, the new senior brother. Haha. Zhao Xiaoshan couldn't help but sneer twice when he heard it. "Stop talking nonsense. Now, I'll give you 2 choices. First, you kick Chu Yun out immediately, and I'll pretend that this never happened. Second, you take 3 of my moves. If you can, I'll take my people away." and I won't enter your Lingzi Mountain again before the sect competition. But if you can't, you'll shut up, kick Chu Yun out, and stay away from my Qin Peak disciples in the future." Zhao Xiaoshan said, looking at Deacon Qin Lu coldly, and said, "Now, Deacon Qin, tell me, which way do you choose?" Chapter 25 3 Moves. 3 Moves. Deacon Qin Lu fell into deep thought after hearing this. This sounds like a very simple way to deal with it. Just 3 moves and it will be fine. But Qin Lu knew that Zhao Xiaoshan was a very confident person. The other party knew his strength and realm, but he could still say 3 moves. This means that Zhao Xiaoshan has absolute confidence that he can defeat him within 3 moves. Then, how terrible is Zhao Xiaoshan's strength? Okay, then I will take your 3 moves. Qin Lu took a deep breath and spoke loudly. Perhaps, Zhao Xiaoshan underestimated me. Qin Lu. As a deacon of Mingzhou Peak, I have a cultivation level of the 3rd level of Qianjun realm. Although Zhao Xiaoshan is 3 levels higher than me, his martial soul level is not much different from mine. If we really fight with hard power, even if I can't beat him, I can still withstand 3 moves. Qin Lu thought to herself. Okay. Zhao Xiaoshan smiled coldly, without saying much. First move, take it. After saying that, he waved his hand to push away the crowd around him, and suddenly exerted force on his feet, tapping the ground with his toes, bursting out with strong power, and instantly crushed the bluestone road into pieces. And his figure also disappeared in this instant, like an arrow from a string, flying towards Qin Lu on the opposite side at a very fast speed, with soul light surging all over his body, and the 5th grade martial soul shadow Violent Bear had already appeared, increasing Zhao Xiaoshan's power even more violently. Bang! The fist attacked. Qin Lu raised his hand to block. At that moment, the terrifying force squeezed the air, forming a rolling air wave, stirring around, sweeping away all the gravel on the ground. The air wave was so strong, and Qin Lu, who was hit in the arm by Zhao Xiaoshan's punch, was under even more extraordinary pressure. At that moment, he even felt that his arm was about to be broken, and his entire arm to the shoulder was numb. Qin Lu retreated more than 10 steps, and when he took the first few steps, his feet also stepped out a lot of pits on the ground, and his body was in a posture that he would fall to the ground at any time. It was not until he finished more than 10 steps that he finally released all the force. Qin Lu's forehead was sweating, and he turned his arms behind his back and hid them in his sleeves. His face was very solemn, because at this moment, his whole arm was shaking. After taking Zhao Xiaoshan's attack, it became very difficult for him to raise his arms. On the side, the disciples of Qin Peak were closely watching this battle, and each of them seemed very excited. As the new eldest brother of Yuan sect, the stronger Zhao Xiaoshan's strength and prestige were, the more Qin Peak's disciples would benefit from him, and the more they would be able to get along in the sect. As for Zhu Wuhai, looking at Qin Lu's embarrassed appearance, his face flushed with excitement, and he secretly mocked in his heart, "Just relying on you, a small deacon, you dare to offend me? Now you know how powerful it is." Second move. Zhao Xiaoshan looked at Qin Lu indifferently and said lightly. Qin Lu took a deep breath. The look before the battle disappeared without a trace at this moment. He clearly realized the huge gap in strength between the two sides. Zhao Xiaoshan was able to become the new senior brother of Yuan sect. His strength is indeed beyond doubt. Qin Lu even had a strange feeling. He felt that Zhao Xiaoshan's strength might be stronger than Chu Yun at his peak. And he didn't know what the result of this second move would be. I should be able to catch it, right? Qin Lu smiled bitterly. He restrained his mind, and the soul light around him was agitated, turning into a shield. Zhao Xiaoshan's move was too fast just now, and he had no time to summon his martial soul to fight. The next moment, Zhao Xiaoshan's figure bounced up again and attacked Qin Lu fiercely. He was strong and fast, and was best at close combat. When he was within 3 steps of Qin Lu, he immediately showed his extremely fierce offensive. Bang, 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 a series of fierce attacks, ruthlessly hitting Qin Lu's 4th grade martial soul iron turtle shield. The shadow Violent Bear roared terribly, and the power became stronger and stronger. Finally, there was a cracking sound, and Qin Lu's martial soul iron turtle shield was directly shattered. His figure finally couldn't withstand this terrifying impact, and flew backwards and fell heavily to the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Kin Lu coughed a series of times, and at the same time his throat felt sweet. A stream of blood was about to flow out of his throat, but he swallowed it hard. While coughing, he slowly stood up. You still want to stop me? Zhao Xiaoshan raised his eyebrows, with cold hostility in his eyes. He stared at Kin Lu and said, I have nothing to do with you in the past. What makes you insist so much? Haha, I understand. You are protecting Chu Yun. Then I want to ask, what benefits did he give you to make you willing to come out as a target? Don't. Bah. Kin Lu spat on the ground with blood and said, if you want to fight, then fight. Why are you talking so much nonsense? As he said that, he took a deep breath. When he made this third move, he knew that he could not stop it, but he had to stop it even if he could not stop it. Who told him that he owed Master Chu Yun a life? A man should do what a man should do. This is called responsibility. Okay, you have successfully angered me, Zhao Xiaoshan said coldly. Kin Lu held his breath and took a step forward, but at this moment, a hand pressed on his shoulder. Okay, that's enough. Take a break. A gentle voice came from the side. Kin Lu turned his head and saw Chu Yun standing beside him, looking at him with a smile. Kin Lu was anxious and whispered, what are you doing here? Go back and do what you should do. Leave everything outside to me. His efforts so far were to make the people of Kyun Peak try not to notice Chu Yun, but now, Chu Yun walked into the sight of Zhao Xiaoshan and others. You take a break. Chu Yun patted Kin Lu's shoulder and looked at Zhao Xiaoshan. The gentleness in his eyes disappeared in an instant. Zhao Xiaoshan raised his eyebrows and showed a strange smile. It turns out to be senior brother. Long time no see. Since Zhao Xiaoshan lost to Chu Yun in the sect competition last year, Zhao Xiaoshan has been avoiding meeting Chu Yun. Even if they met a few times, he never called Chu Yun senior brother, but now, he called him out. The ridicule and mockery in this are self-evident. I don't have time to argue with you. Chu Yun shook his head. His eyes were calm, but mixed with a hint of anger, and he said, come here and apologize to Kin Lu. After the words fell, the surroundings were quiet for a moment. Then a burst of laughter broke out, especially the disciples of Kyun Peak, who laughed the most happily, laughing so hard that they couldn't straighten their backs and were out of breath. Zhao Xiaoshan restrained his smile, looked at Chu Yun coldly, and said, it seems that your brain has not turned around in time. You still think you are the eldest brother of this sect with a 6th grade martial spirit. Now this position of eldest brother is mine. What right do you have to order me to do things? Although in name, the position of eldest brother of the sect is still Chu Yun's, and he has the right to command disciples, but who will listen? Without strength, the title is just an empty shell. I want to beat you to a pulp, Chu Yun said word by word. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.